What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto made harem with Sekirei? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. They were extraterrestrial superpowered humanoids, with a genetic code similar to humans. Their name was taken from that of the Japanese wagtail bird. Long ago, 8 Sekirei spaceships had reached Earth. Each ship contained 108 lifeforms described as one pillar and 107 baby birds. While one had crashed in the sea near Japan, the rest landed in various locations worldwide, and the Sekirei aboard them had given rise to the myths and legends of gods and heroes that have passed down through the history of mankind. In 1999, an island that would later be named Kamakura had emerged suddenly from the sea near Japan, and had been quickly explored by 2 university students, Manaka Hiroto and Takami Sahashi. Together, they had discovered ruins which had been the 8th Sekirei spaceship, the one that had landed in the sea a long time ago, and of course, what they had found there were 108 lifeforms in suspended animation. Manaka, who had used the high technology discovered on the Sekirei ship to amass the fortune required to found MBI, had taken possession of the island and had it declared an extraterritoriality and removed from map, which resulted into several countries starting to have some suspicion about the past events, many of which hadn't been very happy when MBI decided to take the highly advanced technologies for themselves. Combining their forces, those countries launched a huge invasion on Kamakura Island, in hope of discovering its secrets. Their armies had been armed to the teeth with the most advanced military weapons in the world, and their sheer number of foot soldiers alone had surpassed any army in the history of war. However, while lacking the means to defend themselves, the newly founded MBI had expected such thing to happen, and thus bringing the foundation of the first discipline squad, a group of 5 Sekirei under the leadership of the 01, who had been the only adult on the ship when Manaka and Takami discovered the ship. The other 4 Sekirei, from 02 to 05, had been adjusted and turned into fully grown adult using the technology on the ship to fight alongside their leader to protect their unborn siblings because, during that time, the newly founded MBI lacked the forces to defend itself from the invaders. I'll start. Access search. Matsu, Sekirei 02, a beautiful bespectacled young woman who had long red hair with side plates, closed her eyes and activated her power to gain access to MBI's satellite that were monitoring the island from space, analyzing the invaders and their weapons before telepathically supplying the information as well as strategies she had managed to gather and form to her siblings, who immediately rushed to the strategic locations Matsu had provided them. Helicopters? Sekirei number 03, Kazahana, a voluptuous black-haired woman, stated with a smile as she put a hand on her hips and turned her head up to look at the helicopters flying above her. Just my kind of guests. With a small smile, she lifted her hand and pointing her slender finger at the nearby helicopters, causing the wind around them to pick up. Hana Senpu, flower whirlwind. With that declaration, the wind Sekirei created several cyclones of winds and pink flower petals that blown away the helicopters on midair, sending them crashing into each other before dropping to the ground around her in flames. Lowering her hand, she then elegantly raised the other, generating several more tornadoes to wipe out the entire units of flying machines as well as their pilots. There you go. She smiled and looked at the destructions she had caused. At the other side of the battlefield, a silver-haired man, who wore a black outfit with a yellow scarf, took out his sheathed katana and tapped one end of it into the ground and muttered with a calm tone, "Hasaden, smashing point." Sekirei 05, Matsu declared as he used to power over the earth to cause a small-scale earthquake to occur, tearing apart the ground in front of him, uplifting every single tank in front of him and causing the soldiers inside to cry out in fear before abandoning their vehicles to run for their lives. However, before they could get anywhere, a silver-haired woman jumped down from above and started slaughtering every single she could reach with her sword, which she wielded with grace and great skills. Those who she hadn't reached yet desperately fired bullets at her with their guns, but the woman simply jumped into the air to dodge them before landing down and finishing them off with lightning-fast slashes. Weakling. The woman, Karasuba, Sekirei 04 muttered as she looked at the remaining soldiers, who knew that their lives had been settled. As the Sekirei continued to carve destructions around the island, 01, the leader of the discipline squad, remained in the same position in front of Matsu, sharply looking at the battleships on the ocean in front of them. The queen of Sekirei was the most beautiful woman of the group, with a slender yet shapely figure. She had waist-length purple hair with shorter bangs in a traditional Harem style. Much like the other women of the squad, she dressed in a form-fitting black uniform with a grey cap that bore the marks of Sekirei on her shoulders. Removing her sword from its scabbard, Mia raised it above her head, holding the handle with both hands, before bringing it down in a strong slash, sending a violent shockwave that traveled all the way from her position to one of the battleships from afar, slicing it in half. With eyes as cold as ice, she swung her sword to the side, sending yet another powerful shockwave that nearly split the water surface toward the second ship with blurring speed, causing it to be split in half before exploding in the process. Slashing her sword over and over, it didn't take it long for the Sekirei pillar to destroy the entire fleet of battleships, ending the lives of every single human on board. "I think that's the last of them, everyone," Matsu announced once the final ship had been sunk. "Good work everyone," she stated happily once the other Sekirei had reassembled around her and Mia, who sheathed her weapon into its scabbard and turned around to look at her sisters and brother. As expected from the 01, Kazahana commented with a smile while running her hand through her hair, looking the purple-haired swordswoman, who remained silent. Those weaklings better learn their lesson and never step their filthy feet on this island again," the silver-haired Sekirei said as she crossed her arms over her chest and glanced at the dead soldiers she had cut down with her blade. "They are rather weak, aren't they?" Kazahana asked. "Once they lost their weapons, they started running away in fear." "Well, from what I have learned throughout their history, no human can be a challenge for a Sekirei," Matsu pointed out, her glasses glinting. Kazahana only shrugged, and Karasuba and Mutsu said nothing in response. "Don't you agree, Mia-chan?" Matsu asked, turning to look at their eldest sister, who looked at her for a moment before nodding her head in agreement. "Thought so." The red-haired Sekirei smiled. "Well, how about we head back to the base then? I am hungry," Kazahana suggested as she raised both hands above her heads and stretched her back, which caused the miniskirt she was wearing to raise and reveal a small portion of her bubble ass, which she didn't appear to care in the slightest. "Yes, let's go." Mia nodded her head and walked ahead of them. Thump. However, before they could go anywhere, they were stopped by a sound that caught their attentions. Turning their heads to one of the tanks Mutsu had destroyed, they saw a soldier crawling out his way out from the door on the turret, holding a gun in one hand and the helmet on his head with the other. "Man, I swear this is going to be the last time I cosplay," the man muttered to himself as he looked around. "Where are my comrades anyway?" he asked, pushing himself to his feet. He then spotted a bloody body on the ground, and said after a second of pausing, "Ah, so you are all dead, huh?" "Karasuba, I think you missed one," Kazahana said amusedly as she gestured her head to the man who was paying respects to the dead soldiers. "Tch." Karasuba clicked her tongue in displeasure before rushing to the man, removing the sword from its scabbard, which she threw to the side. "You're dead." Hearing her cry, he snapped his head to the side in terror and immediately brought his gun up to fire a barrage of bullets at her. However, by swiftly moving her body to left and right, Karasuba was able to dodge all of them. "Oh shit," he cried when she stopped right in front of him and slashed her sword up, slicing his gun in half. "Seriously?" he cried dramatically, holding the pieces of his machine gun in hand. "Shut the fuck up," Karasuba growled as she raised her sword above her head and then brought it down in a quick and powerful strike. Clang! Quicker than her eyes could follow, the soldier raised the sword in his hand and turned it around to use the flat edge to block hers, causing a shower of sparks to fly between their weapons and a shockwave to erupt between them, tossing the helmet from his head. Karasuba along with the other Sekirei widened their eyes in shock when they saw the man easily holding his ground against the silver-haired wagtail, whose strength was unmatched by any human. "Just kidding, who need a fucking gun anyway?" Asking that, the soldier turned his sword around and slashed horizontally, causing Karasuba to block their sword lock and jump back cautiously. "What in the—" It was at that moment Mutsu realized he wasn't holding his sword but the parts of the man's gun Karasuba had cut in his hand. "When did he do that?" Matsu asked in shock. Immediately after Karasuba had found an opening in his stance, he was casually spinning Mutsu's sword around. She ran at him with incredible speed. Her body became a blur, before delivering a devastating strike from above, which he blocked easily by holding his sword backwards and raising it at shoulder level. He then turned it around when Karasuba started thrusting and slashing her sword at him from all directions, only to be blocked and parried by the man who appeared to be moving just as fast as she could. What is he? Kazahana stuttered in pure shock. I didn't hear about a human capable of such feat. Is he even human? Mutsu asked as he threw the destroyed gun down to the ground. Mia, do you know anything about him? He turned to the Sekirei pillar, who shook her head in response. Matsu, being the one who was keeping her composure, Mia turned her head to Matsu and gave her a meaningful look. Shakily nodding her head, the bespectacled Sekirei used her power to contact MBI's headquarters. After a quick conversation, Matsu turned back to inform her leader with a shaky tone. Takami-tan and Manaka-tan doesn't know anything about this, Mia-tan. She shook her head, and they also know next to nothing about him. They have tried to search for information about that man, but they couldn't find anything. She finished, he is a ghost. Kazahana and Mutsu were speechless. So, you are the type of woman who likes it rough, aren't you? Karasuba could only growl to respond to his remark. Deciding to end the fight, she increased her speed and striking strength dramatically, only for him to surprise her by moving at an even greater speed. In a flash, her sword was knocked out from her hand, and then, she was sent flying across the field by a kick to the abdomen, her back crashing slamming against several tanks before heavily crashing down to the ground. However, as soon as she stopped skipping on the ground, with minimum damages Karasuba shot up, kicking off the ground and pushing her body into the air to reacquire her weapon. Grabbing it tightly in her left hand, Karasuba twisted her body around and shot down toward him, going for a vertical slash. That's the face. He roared with a sadistic smile. Come on, woman. Give me all you have. Show me that excitement. He cried maliciously and spread his arms as if he wanted the silver-haired Sekirei to strike him. Gra! Karasuba roared and brought her sword around with all her strength, only for him to move his body to the side at the last moment with a very genuine smile on his face. The malicious expression had disappeared as if it were never there. Just kidding, he said as Karasuba crashed into the spot he had been standing on earlier. The ground around her feet and the place shattered, with several cracks spreading out from where she had struck her sword. Not wasting a second, she used all that impact force to launch herself toward him with inhuman speed. Her blade came screaming at him. Off you go. Just like the way their battle had been going, the man spun around, avoiding her blade and shot his hand out to grab her cape, as well as the hem of her miniskirt before tossing her into the ocean much to the shock of everyone who was watching. Cool down now. He moved his head to the side when a soaked Karasuba immediately shot at him again with a dangerous piercing attack. I guess not. He raised his sword and blocked another ferocious strike from her. Oi, you think you can handle it, Karasuba? Shut up, Kazahana. Karasuba growled as she tried to break through his defense. I can handle this. We have new order. Matsu announced loudly after talking to the director of MBI. Manaka wants us to bring him back to the base. There's a possible that he's a Sekirei or at least a descendant of one. But that should not be possible. Matsu shook his head. I see. Mia stated calmly as she removed her sword from its scabbard. However, he has come here with the enemies, and it's our duty to protect the unborn Sekirei. Her eyes hardened and became cold. One way or another, he's not going out of this fight in one piece. She slashed her sword around, sending a powerful force at him, splitting the ground open in the result. Karasuba, seeing her Pilar's attack coming, wisely jumped out of the way, forcing the blonde-haired man to meet the attack head-on. Miss me. He leapt backwards, doing it so fast he appeared to instantaneously teleport from one place to the other. The man then stepped his right foot back, dashing it on the ground, and took a firm stance as he clashed with Karasuba, switching from normal defensive to offensive. Karasuba held her ground as he started to attack, going to toe-to-toe with the mysterious who had decided to attack with Mutsu's sword. A bloodthirsty grin crossed her face when she blocked and finally felt the force of his strike, which left her hand shaking in pain but also in excitement. Mia had been the only one who could fight against her like this, despite the fact that the pillar had been holding back every time they sparred. Dust soon kicked up and sparks flew between them as their swords clashed, sending shockwave after shockwave throughout the area, blowing away every destroyed vehicle, including the heaviest tanks, around them. Taking the fight to a whole new level, the mysterious man and the fourth Sekirei fought across the battlefield that was the beach of Kamakura Island, attacking and counter-attacking each other with enough speed that not even Mia could interfere without causing some damages to her sister. Knocking each other back, the two wasted no time to kick the ground underneath their feet to charge at each other, allowing their blades to meet in yet another high-speed sword clash. The sharp winds caused by their clash had become strong enough to tear their clothes. Karasuba's disciplined black uniform had been ruined, literally, with several tears in her form-fitting shirt, and her cape were not in a much better condition. Graw! With another ferocious cry, Karasuba spun around and slashed her sword as hard as she could. Instead of dodging like the last time, the blonde-haired man raised his sword to dodge, but with the speed only Mia's eyes could follow. As soon as their blades met, he spun it around, using Karasuba's sword as a focus point to push the sword into his other hand before pushing forward along the length of her sword, shocking Karasuba. The silver-haired Sekirei was only able to move her head out of the way at the last second and jumped back, creating a considerable safe distance between the two of them. Nice trick, Karasuba commented as she looked at her sword. A part of the handguard had been cut away. It had happened so fast she could only worry for her head. You haven't seen anything yet, little bird, he said, waving his hand around half-heartedly. His statement caused the Sekirei to widen their eyes in surprise. He had called them little bird. A human like him should not know about them. Who are you? Karasuba asked, pointing her sword at him. You are not here like them, aren't you? Maybe, he said thoughtfully, scratching his chin. Let's just say that I am very interested in the secret of this island, and I guess I have found it. He said, looking at Karasuba before turning his eyes to the other Sekirei. By the way, the name is Naruto. Naruto said, spinning his sword around. Now, shall we continue? He asked, his eyes glinting in mild excitement. You ask for it, Blondie. She smirked, but before she could make a move, the ground underneath Naruto cracked and exploded, causing Naruto to lose his balance. It wasn't much, but Mutsu's attack created a distraction that allowed Kazahana to create a tornado and sweep him away with it. What are you doing? Karasuba roared at Kazahana, who lowered her hand and smiled at her fellow Sekirei. I said I could handle it. We don't think so. The wind Sekirei shook her head. We need to bring him back to the base as soon as possible. I am hungry. But before she could finish saying that, the tornado she had created was dispersed and disappeared completely, and Naruto soon appeared in front of them, unscratched. A wind user? He asked, stabbing his sword down to the ground. Guess I will have to do this the old way then. He stated, raising his hand. Wind and petals, allow me to return the favor, my dear. Much to the Sekirei's shock, a cyclone of petals appeared and swept its way toward Kazahana and Karasuba, who immediately stepped back and allowed the wind Sekirei to deal with the attack of her element. Kazahana raised her hand and stood her ground when the tornado slammed into her, doing her best to disperse it with her power over the wind. The black-haired Sekirei gritted her teeth as she was pushed back, her clothes torn by the wind. This power? Kazahana closed her eyes as the tornado suddenly became stronger. Guys, a little help here. Mutsu wasted no time to step in, and created a large boulder from the ground with his power, blocking the tornado of petals midway, giving Kazahana just enough time to move out of the way. Your panty is flashing. Snapping her head to the side, Kazahana widened her eyes when she saw Naruto appearing above her and kicking Karasuba away when she tried to attack him. She tried to summon her winds, but after seeing the super speed fight between him and Karasuba, she had no doubt that she was not going to make it. However, before he could make a move, Mia appeared between them and slashed her sword at him, aiming to tear him apart with her trademark attack. However, before any shockwave could be made, Naruto raised his sword and stopped hers midway with the flat edge of his weapon. She struck much harder than Karasuba, but it was nothing he couldn't handle. Ho, the Tosuga, nice sword. Naruto smirked as he glanced at handguard-less blade before looking into the Sekirei Pilar's icy brown eyes. She asked coldly, grinding her blade harder against his. You are not human, aren't you? Come on, you have already seen what I am capable of, haven't you? He asked, pushing his blade back. What are you then? Don't know, been trying to figure that out myself. He said, disengaging their sword lock, pushing Mia back. So, you're here to take me into your custody, aren't you? One way or another. Let's do it then, Naruto said as he took a stance. Time seemed to freeze around them as they looked at each other in the eyes, waiting for the right movement to make their moves. The other Sekirei wisely retreated. Even someone like Karasuba wouldn't dare to step into a fight of the Sekirei pillar. Finally, on an unspoken signal, Mia made the first move. To the other members of the discipline squad, it appeared as if Mia had teleported. In an instant, she stood several meters away from Naruto, who had yet to make a move, then the next she was right in front of him. Her sword brought back for a deadly piercing attack instead of her usual slashing attack. The Sekirei held their breath, waiting for Naruto to counter the attack of their strongest. Instead, he dropped his weapons and threw his hands into the air, crying, "I surrender." Mia stopped her blade that instant. The tip of Tosuga had already touched the skin between his eyes, but the force of her extremely fast thrust was enough to blow his spiky blonde hair back and cause him to lean his head back slightly in response. Even nature itself didn't dare to make a sound. Kazahana dropped her jaw, having the urge to facepalm. "What?" Mia asked the tall man, hardening her eyes. "You heard me, I surrender." "What game you are playing?" "I am not playing anything." Naruto shook his head. "Fighting a strong opponent is too troublesome, you know." "A strong opponent?" A tick mark appeared on Karasuba's forehead as she shouted at him, "Are you implying that I am weak?" "You catch on quick," he casually replied, causing the silver-haired Sekirei to glare heatedly at him. His attention then shifted back to Mia, who was still keeping the tip of her sword between his eyes. "So, are you going to remove that sword from my face or not? You know, looking at him from this close, he's kinda cute." Kazahana commented as she stood in front of the one-way glass with the rest of the discipline squad to look at the mysterious blonde, who was sitting in the interrogation room with a bored look on his face. He had his eyes closed, his feet on the table, his hands behind his head, and the chair he was sitting on leant back on two legs. The handcuff they had put on his wrist rested on the table in front of him. After Naruto had surrendered, it had been easy for them to bring him back to MBI's base near the Sekirei spaceship. They had brought him to the medical bay and tried to run a few tests on him. They had tried to take his blood, but the doctors of MBI had given when every syringe's nozzle had broken the moment they touched his skin. Without any other choice, they had brought him to an interrogation room, hoping to force some answer out of him from there. The discipline squad had been assembled after they had had lunch, because currently, they were the only ones that could hold their grounds against him. Mia, meanwhile, was looking at the blonde with a puzzled look on her face, mainly because she didn't understand why he was here. For some reason, she had a feeling that he wanted to be here, inside MBI. With the power that could easily defeat a Sekirei like Karasuba or Kazahana, it was possible for him to run away from her, yet he had chosen to surrender, and let them capture him with the lamest reason in that situation. Who was he? What was he? Was he one of them, or was he a descendant of a Sekirei, or was he something else? "You know you can't think of anyone but your Ashikabi like that, Kazahana-tan." Matsu shook her head, pointing it out. Ashikabi were the individuals to whom Sekirei become attached to, in both a contractual and emotional sense, making them Sekirei's destined and true love. "Who know, he might be my Ashikabi. We have the same power, see?" Kazahana said as she created a small whirlwind with flower petals in the palm of her hand. "With power like that, he might be a Sekirei, Kazahana," Karasuba said, shaking her head. Kazahana said nothing in response, as the door to the interrogation room was opened and a woman with black hair and gray eyes, wearing a white lab coat over a black top and trousers, walked in. "Hello again, Naruto-san." Takami Sahashi greeted him as she took her seat on the chair at the other side of the table, opposite from Naruto. "You are that chick, who tried to take my blood, aren't you?" He opened one of his eyes and said in acknowledge of her presence. "I have to admit, I was very surprised." Takami nodded her head. "What are you, exactly?" "The Man of Steel Highsmelf, Clark Kent. I am being very serious here, Naruto-san." Naruto waved his hand dismissively in response, before looking around. "What are you doing? Where is my Katsuden?" Takami could only bury her hand in her face. "You want to interrogate me, right?" "What the hell is a Katsuden?" Karasuba asked in annoyance. "Well," Matsu explained, "Katsuden is a very famous Japanese food. It's a bowl of rice topped with a deep-fried pork cutlet, egg, vegetables, and condiments. Recently, it has become a very famous gag of Japanese films about policemen." Many people think that suspects will speak the truth with tears when they have eaten katsudon and are asked, "Did you ever think about how your mother feels about this?" First, I am not a policewoman. Takami removed her hand from her face and started, and second, you have watched too many drama films. Ah, what a letdown. He threw his hands in the air and leant back, sighing longingly in boredom. Naruto-san, I will ask you once more time. MBI's head researcher asked seriously, what are you? Naruto then sat straight up and leant forward with a very serious expression on his face. Takami and the Sekirei were quite taken aback by this. Me? He asked extremely serious and Takami nodded her head, I'm a god. The black-haired woman's arm slipped, causing Takami to slam her forehead down to the table. The Sekirei clearly didn't know how to react to this, so lady, where is my katsudon? He asked, leaning his head back. Takami could only click her tongue in annoyance and left the room, before returning with a bowl of katsudon for him a few minutes later. Here you go, Takami said as she put the bowl down in front of him, happy now? Ah, thank you. Naruto grinned as he accepted the chopsticks from the woman, man, I am starving. He wasted no time to dig in. Alright, I need you to answer a few questions. Takami said as she took out a notebook and a pen. Ask away, he said, with a mouthful of foods, causing Mia, who had managed to keep a very straight face all the while, to wince in disgust. What is your name? Naruto. Just Naruto? She asked in interest. I have a last name, but that's none of your business. Sigh, okay then. Takami nodded and wrote it down. Where are you from? Japan. You don't look like Japanese to me. Did you dye your hair? Are you wearing lens? Lady, my hair is natural, so are my eyes. Naruto said, pointing the chopsticks at his hair. Anyway, I guarantee you that I am 100% Japanese. Okay then. Takami nodded her head. How old are you? I'm 19. Do you have any family member? Nope, I am an orphan. Oh, so sorry about that. Takami said, lowering her head apologetically. Don't worry, my parents died a long time ago. He shrugged his shoulders in response. Naruto-san, how did you acquire such power on par with the members of our discipline squad? 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats and run 10 kilometers every single day. He answered, but added when Takami gave him a weird look, what? You didn't read One Punch Man? You know, the guy who can one-shot his opponents? I'm a fan. That's not the... Also, I know they are called Sekirei, Naruto interrupted, pointing his chopsticks at the discipline squad, causing them to widen their eyes slightly in surprise. How did he know they were there? No reason for you to hide that from me. How did you? Lady, you and your co-workers literally dragged me all around your base earlier. You should have expected me to pick up a thing or two about them. He mocked before adding, next time, make sure to put earmuffs and blindfolds on your prisoners. What a bunch of amateurs. He said sarcastically before going back to finish his food. I will make sure to remember that. Takami made a small smile. You haven't answered my early question, Naruto-san. About my power? Well, I have no reason to tell you. Takami sighed. She had expected as much. Alright, that aside, what were you doing inside a tank of the United Nations Army? I got lost in the road of life and found my way inside that tank this morning. He answered casually, much to Takami's displeasure, thanks for the meal. He said, clapping his hands together and lowering his head before looking up, could I have another one, please? He requested. Sigh, anyway, Naruto-san. She spoke, closing the notebook. I'm sorry to say this, but you need to stay here. Do whatever you want, it's not like I have anywhere to go anyway. He said, waving one hand in the air. Until we can determine who and what you are, we will have to keep you in a cell, you know. All the better, he stated, smirking mysteriously. Takami could only sigh. This young man was too carefree, in a very weird way. Name: Naruto, country, Japan, age, 19, height, 6 feet 4, weight, 180 pounds, hair color, blonde, eye color, blue. So literally, we know next to nothing about him aside from his facial appearances. Takehito Asama, an MBI researcher, who had gray messy hair that hides a part of his face, and wore a turtleneck sweater and sweatpants covered by a white lab coat, said as he read the file of Takami had made from the information Naruto had provided her earlier that day. Are you sure that he was not lying about his country? I am not 100% sure about that. His eyes are blue and he is blonde, but his Japanese accent is perfect. Takami shook her head before turning to the man who was sitting on the other side of the table with a pleased smirk on his face. Oi, Manaka, what do you think about this? Manaka Hiroto was the chairman and founder of MBI. He was a slender, bespectacled, black-haired man, who wore a Kamen Rider-like outfit complete with red scarf. Along with Takami, he was the man who had discovered Kamakura Island and the Sekirei spaceship, using its highly advanced technologies to create his company a few years prior. A man with the abilities of a Sekirei. Manaka said finally, the smirk had never left his face. How exciting. So that's all you care about? Takami asked while shaking her head in disappointment, while Takehito could only chuckle at the chairman's excitement. I should have expected as much. We have to keep him here at all cost. Manaka said, he's a valuable asset to our company, humanity and the Sekirei. There are so many things we can learn from him. You don't have to worry about that. The brat looked like he didn't want to go anywhere. Takami pointed out in annoyance. Yes, Mia told me she had a feeling that he wanted to be captured, that he wanted to be here. Takehito nodded his head and turning the tablet in his hand around, showing them the recorder of the battle between Naruto and Mia in slow motion. I also believe that someone who fought on par with Karasuba, summoned tornadoes stronger than Kazahana and could drop his weapon and cry, I surrender, as fast as the Sekirei pillar could move should not be captured that easily. Well, he did say he didn't want to fight a strong opponent, remember? Takami turned back to the black-haired chairman. Still, how are we going to learn from him anyway? We couldn't even get a small sample of his blood. We couldn't even cut his hair. She had tried that earlier, and no matter how she had tried, his hair had remained. From what we have seen, he has incredible speed and power, possibly on par with Karasuba and might be even Mia. His skin, while appearing to be normal, is impenetrable. He also has great skills with sword, able to keep up with Karasuba, and elemental manipulation over wind, able to create vortex that could not be negated by Kazahana. That's all we know about him. Takehito nodded his head before suggesting seriously, should we use stronger measures? I am not going to treat him like a lab rat. Takami said, holding her hands up, I am not some mad scientists in science fiction movies. She finished. Don't worry about that, Takami-kun. Manaka grinned. Let our birds take care of that. All we need to do is relax and observe the fun from behind. Takami could only drill a hole in the man's head with her gaze. The next morning, oh look, my first visitors. Naruto said happily as he tossed the book he was reading to the side and stood up from the bed to look at them. The discipline squad plus Takami Sahashi. You guys warm my heart so much. Allow me to give you all a big hug. He quickly approached them with a very genuine smile and his arms outstretched. However, before he could reach any of them, he slammed into a thick glass wall, knocking himself back slightly. Man, that hurt. He said, squatting on the ground while holding his nose with both hands. The Sekirei, sans Mia, and Takami couldn't help but sweat drop at the blonde-haired young man's antics. They all knew he was fooling around with them. A superhuman who could keep up with a Sekirei in a one-on-one battle and had skin as hard as a rock should not be hurt by an impact like that. Shit, fuck my eyes then. Saying in annoyance, Takami turned her head to one of the guards standing outside his prison, which was a highly advanced alien tech energy-powered prison that could even hold back Sekirei physically as strong as Karasuba or Mia, when the latter was holding back by a whole lot. It also had super strong glasses for walls, with a single bed, a table, a chair and an internet-connected flat-scene TV for the mysterious young man inside. Who is the idiot that gave him those neon orange clothes? She asked, pointing at Naruto, who, just like she had said, was wearing a bright neon orange outfit. The fact that his shirt and pants didn't have any other colors or decoration didn't help her eyes much either. Ma'am, we had no choice. The guard stuttered with a red face. He said he would watch porn at maximum volume if we didn't give him something orange to wear. That answer caused various different reactions from Sekirei. Mia sighed in displeasure. Karasuba and Mutsu stared at the blonde like he had grown a second head while Kazahana could only laugh lightly, using a hand to cover her mouth. Matsu, on the other hand, was giggling rather perversely. Why yes, it's very uncomfortable, ma'am. His colleague nodded his head furiously in agreement, causing Takami to sigh in defeat. At least choose something. You know what, forget it. Takami sighed and turned her head back to Naruto, asking, Naruto-san, can I talk to you for a second? Sure, go ahead, I am all ears. Everyone flinched and jumped in surprise when they heard that coming from behind them. Snapping their heads around, even Mia had to drop their jaws in shock when they saw another Naruto walking toward them while eating a cup of instant ramen with a pair of bamboo chopsticks. He was also wearing sunglasses, an orange drinking helmet and a fully stuffed and heavy orange backpack on his shoulders. What, how, where, when? Matsu stuttered in shock while rapidly turning her head, pointing between the two Naruto. It was at that moment the doctor and Sekirei realized the one they had been talking to inside the prison was just a full body picture of a brightly grinning Naruto. What? Why are you guys looking at me like that? He asked, acting like nothing had happened and walked toward the access control box on the prison before casually entering the password, causing the door to open for him to walk in. Walking into the room and closing the door behind him, Naruto removed the backpack from his back and placed it on the table. He then did the same to his sunglasses before picking up the picture and throwing it on the bed, where he took his seat and continued enjoying his meal. Leaning his back against the glass wall. Stop staring, I know I am handsome and attractive and… How did you do that? Takami managed breathlessly. Do what? He replied with a question. Can you be serious for 1 second? How did you get out of this room in the first place, and where did you go? She then snapped her head to the guards, who quickly defended themselves. Without any other choice, Matsu quickly used her power to gain access to the camera within his room, and saw that he had never left the room and MBI's facility in general since yesterday. The only times he had been outside of the place were when he went to the toilet, but he had returned to the place shortly after that. Well, I felt a little bit hungry so I went to Tokyo to shop for some ramen and soft drinks. Naruto pointed to his backpack, answering with a very straight face and causing Takami and the Sekirei to drop their jaw in shock. The pillar, meanwhile, didn't share the same expression, but she had her eyes widened as wide as dinner plates. I have also bought an electric kettle, so would you mind giving me a power outlet and some water please? I need to cook some more ramen. You're lying? Kazahana whispered. Much like the other three Sekirei, she was still trying to pick her jaw from the ground. PFT? Me? Lying? No way. He laughed, more at himself than at them. Ugh, Takami growled, before sighing longingly while massaging the bridge of her nose with her fingers, doing her best to keep her composure and be professional. She had to admit she had never met someone who could make her lose her temper faster than Manaka. Should she believe him? Should she believe anything that came out of his mouth in the first place? Hey, can I ask you one thing? Naruto suddenly raised his hand. Is it necessary to bring the entire team with you? Before she could open her mouth to speak, he continued, I mean, it's not like I have a problem with that. You're hot, and those birds behind you are smoking. It would be a whole lot better if you left that guy out of this. Nothing against you, scarf. None taken, Matsu said calmly, while the girls, even Mia, were feeling flattered by his compliment. My, aren't you such a charmer? Kazahana commented, having a smile on her face. More like a smartass. The silvered-haired Sekirei commented sarcastically, smirking when Naruto turned his head to look at her with half-lifted eyes. Well, aren't you going to answer my question? Naruto asked while pushing the last mouthful of noodles into his mouth. Can you please finish your food first? Mia spoke up for the first time. It's rude to talk to other when your mouth is full. Should I expect anything less from a girl with a Harem haircut? Naruto muttered sarcastically, but loud enough for everyone to hear. It caused a tick mark to appear on Mia's forehead, and her hand to tighten around her sword. Takami, if you please, he said, glancing at the black-haired woman. Well, they have reasons to be here with me. Takami said after she had taken a deep breath. We are still deciding whether or not you are a threat to MBI and the Sekirei, so for the time being, these Sekirei of the discipline squad will take turns watching over you, to make sure that you are not going to try anything funny. So I have 4 smoking hot chicks and a scarf-wearing guy for babysitters. I am not complaining. Naruto shrugged before asking, though, don't you have better things to do? I mean, aren't you 5 the only current defenders of this island? We believe the invaders are not going to try anything anytime soon. Takami shook her head. They have already suffered great losses in men and weapons after their first attempt to invade this island. She explained, so for the meantime, besides training and helping us take care of the unborn Sekirei, they don't have anything interesting to do. So I guess why not let them entertain themselves with a brat who cannot stop being a troll and making a fool out of himself for a second. She finished with a satisfied smirk. Haha, very funny. Naruto laughed mockingly and sarcastically before asking, you guys are okay with that? I don't see why not, Mutsu answered with a nod of his head. Me neither. Oh, this is going to be so interesting. Karasuba said, smiling sadistically, can you imagine all the fun we are going to have? Without a care, Naruto gave her the middle finger. Why don't you suck on this? He asked before glancing to Natsu. You? Well, I usually spend my free time surfing the internet and spying on the enemies. Matsu said while adjusting her glasses, so it would be nice to have something else to do. Naruto nodded his head in understanding before glancing at Kazahana. Seeing him looking at her, she said, I don't have any problem with taking care of you. The wind Sekirei giggled while using a hand to cover her mouth. Appreciate that. Naruto chuckled before looking at Mia. What about you, princess? Someone had to keep a close eye on you. She stated calmly, you are dangerous. Like I have been told several times. Naruto nodded his head before turning to Takami. Is there anything else? We also would like to have a test on your strength, Naruto-san. She stated, how well can you control your wind power? What is the limit of your power? Exactly how strong are you? Takami questioned curiously. We have already seen you holding yourself against Karasuba. You are fast, skilled with sword, and I have no doubt that you are physically extremely strong as well. We would love to test your speed and strength, but right now we would like to see how well you can handle your power. She quickly added, for safety reason, of course. Don't worry, I understand what you are trying to say. Naruto said, basically, you want me to show you power, right? That's right. Takami said as she walked toward the access control box and entered the password, opening the door, and we would like to see you doing that against one of the Sekirei here. How about 4? Naruto asked, taking a long gulp of soft drink from his helmet. I am sure I can manage all 4 super ladies at the same time. It took them several seconds to realize the hidden meaning in his words. Why you little? Karasuba reached her hand for the handle of her sword. If it weren't for Matsu and Kazahana who were doing their best to hold her back, she would surely rush into Naruto's room to cut him to pieces. Mia was the only one who managed to keep a straight face, but even the strongest Sekirei couldn't stop her cheeks from dusting pink. Do I seriously have to wear this? Naruto asked, looking at all the high-tech devices he was wearing on his body. Naruto had also changed his neon orange clothes to a normal outfit, which consisted of a normal orange shirt and black pants, plus a zipped-up jacket and brown boots with black gloves. After he had been released from his new room, Naruto had been taken to a wide and empty area outside MBI's base building, where the Sekirei usually trained every day. While the place was built using many alien technologies, it could never handle a battle between 2 Sekirei or between a Sekirei and someone with Sekirei's abilities. You might not let us take a sample of your blood, but can you at least let us check your vital signs while you are fighting? Takami said as she pushed a device on his right temple before doing the same to his left one. There. No harm is done for you and no gain for us as well. I guess I can let you do that. Naruto nodded. You sure they can handle the fight? These are Sekirei's technologies. While small, they are strong enough to withstand several pounds of C4 explosives. Takami explained as she checked the devices on his arms once last time to make sure they were functioning normally. Alien? Naruto chuckled. And I thought those science fiction movies about aliens were just bluffing about their technologies. Their strengths, on the other hand, were a completely different story. He had been there and experienced that with his own body more than once, after all. There you go, Takami said as she stood up, everything works just fine. After saying that, she walked away, joining a group of scientists who were standing in front of many computers like machines and recording devices. The chairman wasn't present, but Naruto knew that he was watching in his personal office. Alright, so which one of you want to experience what I would like to call a one-side battle? Naruto shouted confidently and also rather arrogantly to the members of the discipline squad, who were standing at the far side of the field. I'm so going to wipe that smile from his face, Karasuba growled as she pulled her sword out of its scabbard, causing the steel hard blade to glint dangerously in the sunlight. She stepped forward, but before she could do it, she was stopped by a hand which was holding a handguard-less katana. The other Sekirei found themselves widening their eyes in surprise at the decision of their pillar, while the scientists were wondering if they should retreat back and observe the battle from several miles away. "I will fight him," Mia stated firmly as she took a step forward. Karasuba looked at her leader for a second before closing her eyes, nodding her head. "Fair enough." She tossed Mia her sword, which she caught before saying, "Give that to him. I know they want to test his wind power, but I would like to see how good he is against you, O1. Mia turned her head around, giving the silver-haired Sekirei a look before nodding her head and walking forward. "Mia, while I don't want you to kill him, you will have to fight him seriously." Takami shouted, "I want to see everything, so you will have to push him to his limit." "Very well." Mia nodded her head. "So the big boss herself is going to fight me?" Naruto said as Mia stopped 100 feet in front of Naruto. "You sure you want to do this?" Naruto asked with a small smirk. "I will try my best to hold back," Mia said as she tossed Karasuba's sword to Naruto, who lazily raised his hand and caught the sword. However, right after the moment, his fingers had secured around the handle. Naruto reappeared in front of the sword-wielding Sekirei pillar, moving so fast he left an afterimage in the place where he had stood. He came at her with a lightning-fast and powerful diagonal slash that would slice her from Mia's left shoulder to her right hip if she hadn't raised her sword with matching speed to block. A loud clang thundered like the sound of a lightning bolt tore through the sky, causing a powerful shockwave that knocked the white coats wearing people on their asses and buffeted the hair of every Sekirei back due to the violent winds that followed after it. "You know what?" Naruto smirked as he looked at Mia's icy brown eyes. He trailed his eyes down and the left corner of his lips curved up when he saw two large cracks under her boots. He expected no less from the Queen of Sekirei herself. "I highly recommend you to do otherwise." Mia said nothing and broke their sword lock before immediately engaging Naruto in an out-of-earth sword clash. With sword in his right hand, Naruto came at Mia fast and furious, and so did Mia. They didn't try to block, they didn't even try to parry each other's wild yet extremely accurate strikes. They attacked and let their sword clash in the middle, moving so fast the normal spectators could no longer see their arms and their weapons, and striking so strong each time their sword came into contact with each other a shockwave was created. Takami said breathlessly before snapping herself back to reality. "How are his vital signs?" She hit one of the researchers in the back of his head, causing him to look at the computer scene in front of him. What he saw shocked him to the core. They are normal," he stuttered. Takami gasped, before pushing the man out of the way to look at Naruto's vital signs herself. His blood pressure was 120/80. Naruto's heart beat at 65 beats and he breathed 18 times per minute. It was perfectly normal for a young man like him. Hold on a second, Takami realized. They were too perfect. Shockingly perfect to be exact. No one should be able to have such a perfect vital signs like his. Especially when that someone was fighting and moving at the speed faster than a human being could blink their eyes. It didn't take it long for Takami to realize this battle, against the Sekirei pillar, was just like a normal walk in the park in a normal day like him. Mia hardened her eyes, and in a powerful slash, she managed to knock him back but parted her mouth slightly when she realized she had been pushed back 2 meters as well, with her feet skidding on the ground. Naruto landed gracefully on his feet, a small smirk on his face when he looked up and locked eyes with Mia. Then, without pausing for a second, their free hand reached out and simultaneously removed the sheaths of their weapons, throwing them away as they rushed at each other one more time. Metal blades clashed for the first time as they met in the middle of the field, sending sparks flying between them. "You are still holding back, aren't you?" Naruto asked with a smile as their blades shook slightly by the force they were applying to them. Mia said nothing and kept her eyes cold and her face blank like usual. "Man, do you ever smile? You have 20 or something in your ass or something?" he asked in amusement, and Mia decided to ignore it. "You are holding back too. You do understand that I have no problem ending your miserable life with my blade, don't you?" she asked emotionlessly, causing Naruto to smirk. "I suggest you stop or I will hurt you." "Do your best then." "Very well." She loosened her grip on her sword and stopped using her strength, allowing Naruto to win and slash his sword forward. She sidestepped and dodged by moving her body to the side, so fast she appeared to be blinking. Then, while standing in the same stance, she slashed her sword and caused a ripple in the air, sending her trademark shockwave attack at him at near point-blank range. Near, because based on his performance so far she knew he could dodge it, but his evasion would give her a wide opening to go for the strike that would end the fight. However, Mia didn't expect him to stand still, causing the shockwave cut to slice clean through his neck before traveling onward to the sky above, parting the clouds in the process. Mia froze with her eyes widening in shock, and for a second no one dared to speak a word, not until Karasuba's sword slipped from his hand. His head fell from the neck and landed beside his feet, rolling on the ground. His body followed soon after, dropping heavily on the ground. What the fuck? Did she just cut his head off? What the hell? Mia, is that necessary to go that hard on him? Takami shouted to the Sekirei pillar, her face green. The Sekirei and human cried out at the same time. Shock, terror and horror filled the air as the head came to a stop. Meanwhile, Mia was just staring at the body. Her eyes were wider than they had ever been, not because she had just cut Naruto's head off, because she couldn't see any blood coming from his neck. Was he a robot, built by the Union of Nations that wanted to invade Kamakura Island? Sigh, I guess it can't be helped, we will collect his body. Takami shouted and turned to the others, giving them a meaningful look. Hold on, stand back. Mia shouted, stopping MBI's employees from making a step toward them. With her guard on, she carefully approached the body and turned it around with the flat side of her sword, Tosuga. Reaching her hand out, Mia bent her back so that she could examine the dead body. Gotcha. Mia nearly jumped back when the head of a grinning Naruto shot out from inside his jacket, causing the Sekirei to gasp in surprise. Muwahaha. I knew you would fall for. His happiness was cut short because he was forced to clap his hands together around Tosuga blade in front of his face to stop Mia from impaling his head with it. What the hell, woman? That is not how you are supposed to react. He tricked us, Takami stated. Should she feel surprised? But what about? She turned her head to the head on the ground, and nearly face-palmed when she saw a coconut with a yellow wig on top of it. Where did he get that coconut from? She asked in disbelief. Just like a kid. Karasuba growled in annoyance while Kazahana and Matsu were giggling amusingly. Is he even taking this seriously? However, it was a terrifying thought, considering that his opponent was the Queen of Sekirei, whose power was from another dimension entirely. But how did he do that? Matsu wondered. How did he even manage to trick Mia? You seem to have a lot of tricks up your sleeves, don't you, Naruto-san? Mia asked as she put her hand on the end of Tosuga and pushed down as hard as she could. The blade slipped between Naruto's palms and stabbed into the ground because Naruto had tilted his head to the side to dodge at the last second. You haven't seen anything yet, Mia-chan. Naruto grinned. His grin then turned into a sly smirk. I, on the other hand, have seen it all. Mia became confused. You seem to have a thing for purple, don't you? It took Mia several seconds to realize the meaning in his question. With red hues on her cheeks, she removed her sword from the ground and raised it to the side. Grinning, Naruto kicked his feet and dashed upward on the ground to avoid Mia's blade, which yet again unleashed another shockwave that left a long and thin cut on the ground after it had blown a large amount of earth and dirt up. Holding her sword at her left hip, Mia rushed to Karasuba's sword on the ground to prevent the blonde from retrieving his weapon, but came to a halt when Naruto went for the fake head instead. Seizing the coconut from the ground and into his hand, Naruto removed the wig and moved his body to the side to dodge Mia's lightning-fast slash that came from above. He then crouched down to dodge a horizontal slash, but raised the coconut above his head, causing Mia's sword to slice through a small part of it. Removing that part from the coconut and standing up, Naruto took out a long straw from his pocket and put it into the coconut before he started to drink the water from it. A second, please. Naruto raised his hand and told that to Mia, who looked at him with half-lifted eyes before rushing forward to attack him again. Come on, woman. Can I just enjoy a coconut in peace? Naruto whined as he was forced to dodge Mia's ferocious attacks. Enough fooling around, Mia said as she slashed left and right. Fight me seriously. She then raised her sword above her head, holding the grip with both hands. Itoryoden, cut in two. With that declaration, she brought her sword down, unleashing a tremendous force that flipped the entire area in front of her up and blasted Naruto into the air. The blonde, however, simply backflipped before landing gracefully on his feet several feet away from the Sekirei pillar, who raised her eyebrows slightly when she saw no damages on his body. Okay, done, Naruto announced, removing the straw from his mouth. it's my turn now," he shouted, and threw the coconut at Mia, aiming for her head. The Sekirei pillar simply raised her sword and sliced the fruit into 2 pieces with ease. However, as soon as the parts parted away, Naruto was right in front of her with his fist crooked back. He wasted no time to throw his punch, and Mia was forced to move her head to the side to dodge it, feeling the winds gazing her face. She brought her sword up, but before she could deliver a strike, he shot his other hand out and backhanded her wrists, hurling her sword to the other direction before pushing his right foot on the ground to launch his knee into her abdomen. Mia twisted and leapt her body to the side, causing his knee to miss her stomach by an inch. Using her momentum, Mia slashed her sword, going for a horizontal slash. However, once again her attack missed its target when Naruto bent his back backwards. Putting his hands on the ground, Naruto twisted his body around and sent a roundhouse kick to the side of Mia's face, which she managed to dodge using the flat side of her tosuga. But before she could even think about a counterattack, Naruto had already gotten to his feet, punching her once again. Mia barely had the time to bring her sword up to block, using the sharp blade. However, his fist stopped and disappeared from her sight, and the next thing she knew, she was blasted back several meters by a vortex of winds, which she managed to disperse a second later with her sword. "Indeed, your wind is quite strong," Mia said as she repositioned herself on the ground, holding her sword in front of her, "but you will have to do a lot more than that to hurt me, Naruto-san," she stated confidently before noting a small, arrogant smirk that appeared on his face. Generating a huge cyclone from his hand, Naruto then swung his hand to the side, sending the cyclone at Mia, who was fully prepared for the attack. However, her eyes widened in shock when she saw him taking a deep breath before expelling from his mouth a massive orb of rotating flame. The fireball soon fused with the wind cyclone, forming a gigantic firestorm that leveled anything on its path while traveling toward Mia. Did he just breathe a fireball out of his mouth? Matsu cried out in shock. Unlike her sisters and brother, Mia had no time to wonder how he could control another element, as she had to sweep her sword to the side, using the tremendous force of her attack to disperse the tornado, sending the fire all across the field. Mia quickly spotted Naruto, who smirked and moved a little to the side to avoid being burned by one of the larger fire on the ground. What? Before she could attack him, her eyes shot wide open in shock when she saw Naruto's hand crackling with blue electricity, which then expanded and headed to Mia in the form of a large hound. Keeping her composure and stopping herself from wondering how it could be so vivid, Mia waited for the lightning beast to lunge at her to dodge, lowering her body to the ground before spinning around, slashing her sword in a swirl, cleaving the hound's head off in the process. Looking up, Mia gasped when she saw not just 1, 2, or 3, but a huge pack of lightning hounds were charging at her from every direction, their tails being connected to Naruto's 2 hands. "I'm not done yet, Mia-chan," she heard him whispered in a very low and calm tone, and then much to her shock, 3 gigantic water dragons appeared from the air, circling around her before raising high into the air and bearing their fangs down at Mia, leaving the spectators in a state of absolute shock. "Like I have already told you, people. I am a fucking god." With that, the dragons crashed down at the same time as the hounds. "I see," Mia said as she tightened her grip on her sword. A small smile appeared on her lips. "Then I shall show you the power of a goddess." A thin, purple aura appeared around her slender body as she glanced at the water dragon and lightning hounds. Releasing one hand from the grip of Tosuga, Mia raised her sword to the side and then spun around, generating powerful shockwaves in every direction, heading toward the water dragons. Without pausing for a second, she took her sword back in her usual stance and charged forward, slashing her way through the lightning hounds. Her sword and movement could no longer be seen by her fellow Sekirei. It happened in less than 1/10 of a second. She took care of all the hounds about the same time the shockwaves crashed into the water dragons, mercilessly demolishing them and causing water to be blown everywhere around the island. Mia then jumped into the air, avoiding the water-infused lightning that splashed on the ground and launching herself at Naruto, who refused to move despite the fact that Mia was coming at him with the intent to kill. As she brought her sword down, sand suddenly shot out from the ground around Naruto and gathered in front of him to create a giant sand creature that greatly resembled a tanuki. The moment it had taken a completed form, the tanuki's hand shot up and clapped tightly around Tosuga with amazing strength, stopping it from reaching its target, causing Mia to glare at the sand creature and the man standing behind it. She immediately went for another attack, but suddenly found herself unable to move her feet. Looking down, Mia widened her eyes when she saw the ground underneath her turning into mud, which quickly swallowed her up to her ankles. TCH, wind, water, fire, lightning, sand, earth. Just how many elements can he control? Kazahana asked in shock, the feeling that was being shared by two other Sekirei. The last one, meanwhile, was trembling, not in fear, not in shock, but in excitement. Karasuba had never felt such emotions in her life. More, she whispered with a sadistic grin. Show me more, Naruto, show me your power. You know, Mia-chan? Naruto said to Mia, who cut down the tanuki and freed herself from the mud to attack him with her sword. If the two of us fight seriously, we will probably destroy this island in less than a minute. Look at the damage we have caused while holding back. Mia glanced around and saw the destructions that had gone beyond her expectation. Had she really lost herself into this battle? I don't think that is something you want, correct? He asked with a smile as he grabbed her hand, stopping her from slicing his cheek. Mia was quite taken aback by his smile because it was different from all the ones she had seen from him, so let's end this battle with our attacks. Mia widened her eyes in shock when he pushed her back, one move. Smiling, he raised one finger, one, serious, move. Seriously, he said, very well. Mia steeled her nerve as she held Tosuga tightly in her hands. With speed faster than she had ever moved in her life, Mia attacked Naruto, slashing her long sword with a tremendous force that could easily demolish the very land she was standing on. But after she had finished her attack and come to a halt, Tosuga was no longer in her hand. Naruto had also disappeared from her sight. All she saw, for a brief moment, was a flash of gold. Pulling her hand back, the Sekirei pillar touched her cheek and felt slightly wet. Looking at the tip of her finger, she saw a very small amount of blood. On her right cheek, close to her cheekbone, was a diagonal cut, which was small, no more than half a centimeter. Slowly turning her head around, Mia saw Naruto looking at her with a wide grin on his face. His arm was extending forward, hand loosely holding the handle of her weapon. That's enough for today, don't you think? Mia accepted her weapon and gave him a nod of her head before looking up. With that, Naruto turned around and swaggered away happily. Oi Takami. I hope it is lunchtime. Shut the hell up, the black-haired woman cried as she pointed her hand to the devices besides her that had been destroyed earlier by water infused with high-voltage electricity. You did this on purpose, didn't you? Do not worry, I will compensate for the damage later. Naruto said, giving her a nice guy grin. Like hell, you can. Do you even know how much they cost? Takami sighed when Naruto waved his hand in the air and walked away casually, but, still. She looked up, and looked at the sky like everyone else, to think. He is this strong, Mia muttered. What she was seeing gave her the feeling that the sky had been cut in half. That night, ha ha ha, what a bunch of idiot. Sitting on his bed in his new room, Naruto laughed wholeheartedly as he watched a funny scene of the circus, a 1928 silent film written and directed by Charlie Chaplin himself. Calming down, Naruto reduced the volume with the remote control before asking loudly, "How long are you planning to just stand there watching me anyway?" He turned his head around and looked at Mia, who was standing at the other side of the glass with a tray of food in her hands. The Sekirei pillar had changed out of her discipline uniform and was wearing the traditional attire of a Miko, priestess. That consisted out of a purple hakama, a white haori with a sash-like belt, wooden sandals and a white ribbon to partially hold her hair in place. She completed her outfit with a see-through veil that went down to below her knees and extended down even lower from the sleeves of her top and kept together by a thin purple string in front of her chest. "I don't want to disturb you, Naruto-san." Mia shook her head. "You seem like you're enjoying yourself. You don't have to worry about that." He shook his head. "Is that my dinner?" "Yes, Takami wanted to give this to you." Mia nodded his head. "So you volunteered yourself?" Naruto grinned as he stood up and walked toward the door. "Man, I am touched. This is my shift," Mia stated calmly while entering the password for Naruto's room, causing Naruto to lower his shoulder dramatically. "I will be keeping my eye on you tonight and tomorrow morning." "Ha, is that so?" Naruto nodded his head in understanding as Mia walked into the room. "Thank you anyway." Mia said nothing as she put the tray of food down to the table before glancing at the trash bin that was full of empty cup of instant ramen and chopsticks. "And does it hurt for you to smile a little?" he asked with a voice of sarcasm. Ignoring him, she asked, "You like ramen?" Mia looked at him. "Are you sure it's good for your health, Naruto-san?" "Ah, you care about me, don't you?" Naruto asked teasingly as he took his seat on his chair and pulled the tray of foods toward him. "Itadakimasu." He picked up the chopsticks and announced with a smile, "You don't have to stand like that. Go ahead and make yourself comfortable anywhere you want," he said, waving his hand around the room. Mia lowered her head in gratitude before sitting down traditionally on her knees on the bed. As he enjoyed his dinner, she eyed Naruto with her keen eyes, trying to figure it out what he was. He couldn't be a Sekirei, or even a direct descendant of one. No Sekirei could control more than one element. As a pillar, she knew about her Sekirei better than anyone, even those who had spent years studying them. There were just so many unanswered questions in her mind. What was he, exactly? What was his intention? What was his true motive? How long have you been here on Earth? His question snapped her out of her thought, and instead of answering it right away, she requested annoyingly, "Can you talk after you have swallowed your food?" Gulp. "All right. How long have you been here? I am not supposed to share anything involve the existence of Sekirei to you." Mia shook her head, "And I also don't want to share anything with you." "What a killjoy," Naruto commented sarcastically before adding, "Frankly speaking, you don't trust me, do you?" "Yes," Mia replied shortly, "especially after she had seen what you were capable of." "Fair enough." Naruto chuckled before he decided to change the topic. "I heard they had tripled the security around here," Naruto stated, looking around the dark place with amusement in his eyes. His room stood in the middle of it, and was the only source of light within the place. "You are correct." Mia nodded before asking, "How did you do that anyway? How did you escape?" "Well, I have been breaking in and out of many prisons." "Human prisons?" Mia interrupted, reminding him, "Not this kind of prison. I don't see anything different." Naruto chuckled. "Why are you here, Naruto-san?" Mia asked finally, "Why did you let yourself captured?" Naruto didn't answer right away. Instead, he grabbed the cup of water and took a long gulp, clearing his throat with the cool liquid before answering Mia's question. "I am here because the world itself has already bored me," he answered simply. "To tell you the truth, I have no interest in your Sekirei or what MBI is doing here. I am here because I want to be here." He tilted his head back to look at the purple-haired woman. "Will you believe me if I say I am here to find friends? Those who are not going to look at me differently because I am someone who can bend the elements to my will." He then turned back and continued to enjoy his meal. "So you are here to seek companions?" Mia asked. Her eyes became soft, much softer than usual. "Part of my reasons I am here, but I guess you can say it like that." Naruto nodded his head. "How long have you been aware of those powers of yours? Not the usual what am I kind of question." "Yes. Well, to tell you the truth, I cannot remember exactly when," Naruto answered, shrugging his shoulders, "but I can assure you that it didn't come out of nowhere. Practicing, studying, training, hard work, you name it." "I see, so that's why you are so powerful, Naruto-san. Powerful enough to stand up against a goddess, am I right?" Naruto added with a grin, giving her a thumb up. "Yes, I guess you are," Mia said before a beautiful smile broke out on her face. "Ah, you are smiling." Naruto stood up and pointed his hand at Mia in a dramatic manner, before returning to his seat and turning back to his foods. "You should smile more often," he said, waving his hand above his head. "You look very beautiful when you smile. Not that you don't when you are not, by the way." For the third time of the day, he made her blush. The smile softened a little, but it didn't leave her face. "I'm back," Mia announced as she stepped into the common room she shared with her Sekirei, the members of the discipline squad. They had only been given the place to stay only recently, as Mia and her siblings had spent most of their time inside MBI's laboratory, where the researchers would check and keep tab on their conditions. The rooms, separated by soundproofed walls, they had been given had been very simple at first, but Mia and her Sekirei had changed them to their likings, by adding various objects and redecorating the walls and the ceilings. Mia had a large queen-sized bed in the middle of her room, surrounded by a comfortable chair next to a working table. Tatami mats on the floor. A decent-sized wardrobe with a bookshelf and a place for her to put her sword, the Tosuga no Suguri, on the wall above her bed. While Mutsu, Kazahana and Karasuba had set up there normally and modernly, Matsu had filled her room with computers and high-tech devices, which she used to spy on the enemies of Kamakura Island and worked on technical tasks that not even the most talented of MBI could solve. Like Mia, Matsu and Kazahana had changed out of their uniforms, which were still being worn by Mutsu and Karasuba. The latter had claimed the enemies of Kamakura Island could return anytime, and she had to be ready. Matsu was wearing a form-fitting white shirt and knee-length jeans that both wrapped around her voluptuous frame nicely. Meanwhile, Kazahana, being the kind of woman who had a lot of confidence in her natural appeals and no problem in flaunting them, were wearing an outfit that had taken a lot of blood from the male researchers and Mia had sternly pointed out to be too lewd to be allowed to share a room with her. It was a very short dress that hugged her well-developed body seductively and opened widely at the front, showing the inner portions of her large S and belly button. "Welcome back, Mia-tan," Matsu greeted with a smile, before turning back to her computers and blurring her fingers on the keyboard. Mutsu and Karasuba simply waved their hands at her, before going back to whatever they were doing before Mia arrived. "How was your first night with our goofy idiot?" Kazahana asked with a small smirk, using the word Mia had used to call Naruto the previous night. "Kazahana?" Mia spoke the name of the wind Sekirei softly, before pointing her finger accusingly at the black-haired woman. "You're dirtying our living room with your addiction for alcohol again. Clean up the mess before I force you to do it," she demanded, looking at the empty cans of alcohol on and around Kazahana. Recently, the wind Sekirei had taken a liking to alcoholic beverages and could always be seen with one whenever she wasn't training or being examined by the researchers inside their lab. Alright, geez." Kazahana pouted and stood up from her chair to start cleaning the mess she had made on the floor. Though, she didn't forget to ask for an answer for her early question. "You haven't answered my question yet, Mia." While he had his moments of being an annoying joker who couldn't stop making fun of everything around him, while making her way further into the room, Mia started with a blank face, causing Kazahana to giggle in amusement. Naruto-san had proven himself to be quite a gentleman. "He allowed me to use his bed too." "Hold on a second, you slept with him?" Matsu interrupted loudly in surprise, before allowing a perverted grin to spread across her face, much to Mia's annoyance. My, who know you have it in your, Mia-chan." Kazahana giggled. This had also taken Mutsu and Karasuba's interests, as they immediately dropped their works and turned their heads to look at her. "I can assure you that nothing happened between us." Mia stopped and calmly replied before taking a seat on one of the empty chairs in the room. "He slept on the floor, and remained there all night." "You sure the brat didn't do anything to you?" Karasuba asked with a chuckle, "because you know, he is faster than you." She reminded the pillar, who frowned slightly at the memories of Naruto's final attack. He had moved so fast all Mia could see had been a flash of gold. "You don't have to worry about that, Karasuba." Mia shook her head, closing her eyes. "I didn't sleep. I was there to make sure he didn't try anything funny, not meddle around. If you still want to prove, Matsu can gain access to the security cameras inside his room and show you everything that happened last night." "Geez, there's no need for that." Kazahana waved her hand around. "I believe you, Mia." The others nodded their heads in agreement with the wind Sekirei, earning a nod of gratitude from the purple-haired queen of Sekirei. "Takami has already moved him to another room earlier on the 4th floor this morning, one with a higher security system and a place for us to stay during nighttime," Mia informed them. "Well, it's good to know then." Kazahana nodded her head before throwing her garbage into a trash bin. "Is there anything else we need to know about?" Mia nodded her head before starting to tell them about the first normal conversation between her and the self-proclaimed god, repeating every single word he had told her about his intentions and his powers to her Sekirei. In addition, Mia didn't tell them about his comment on her beauty and her smile, believing it wasn't necessary and important for them to know about. To say the Sekirei were surprised was an understatement. After a moment, the second Sekirei decided to break the silence by asking the Sekirei pillar calmly, "Do you believe what he said, Mia-tan?" "I don't think he was lying." Mia then shook her head, "But it doesn't mean I have come to trust him." "Do you remember that he called Karasuba little bird during their battle?" Everyone nodded their heads, so unless it was because of the Sekirei crest on her uniform, it had to be because he had already known about us before coming to this island. She said seriously, "Until we have found out his real motives, we should not let our guard down around him." That's not my intention. Karasuba smirked, but not because of Mia's words. She had her own plans with the self-proclaimed god, after all. You know, since it's going to be my shift next, how about I use this sake to make him drunk and spill everything to us? Kazahana said, smiling mischievously while holding a green bottle to her chest. I heard somewhere that every word comes out of your mouth while you are drunk was the truth. I don't think why not. Mia nodded her head, causing Kazahana's smile to widen. We probably cannot force the truths out of him with brute forces anyway. Pausing for a second, she then continued, however, you must be very careful, Kazahana. He's someone who has a lot of weird tricks up his sleeves. They might have been used to make fun of the situations, but no one can deny the fact that they are extremely effective, useful and also dangerous. Don't worry Mia, Kazahana smiled. While she might not be as smart as Matsu, she had already had a plan in her head and knew exactly what she would have to do to make it work. Line break. Where did you even get that gaming device from? Staring at Naruto who was standing in the middle of his room playing Fruit Ninja using a small toy-like sword, Takami couldn't stop herself from asking with a dumbfounded expression on her face. You know what, don't answer that. I don't want to know. She shook her head and said quickly when the blonde paused the game and turned around to look at her. He had probably broken out again and gone to who know where to buy that game. So much for a room with a higher security system. You catch on quick, don't you? Naruto grinned before taking a step back cautiously when Takami removed a 45 ACP semi-automatic handgun from her lab coat and put it heavily on the table. Oi, what is that for? Aren't you a scientist? He asked, pointing his finger at the weapon. Who said a scientist cannot carry a gun around? Takami asked with an evil grin. Plus, you don't have to worry about that. It's for emergency situations, and I have no intention of using it outside emergency situations. Unless you suddenly decide to give me one, aka messing around while I am working. Naruto nodded his head sagely in agreement. Now, why don't we get back to business? She took out a pen and clipboard. I'm here to give you a checkup. We need to make sure that you are in perfect health. There's no need for that. Naruto raised his hand and shook his head. I am always in perfect condition, even on my worst days. Saying that he went back to play his game, lazily slashing his sword around but for some reason managed to get all the fruits at the same time. Takami couldn't help but look at the young man because what his last statement lacked the usual playfulness he had always used to talk with the people around him. It felt like those words carried some weight in them. I see, Takami said finally and wrote that down, finding herself unable to say anything to him. Takami also couldn't believe how strange it was for her to see him speaking and acting like that. Now, what do we have here? Then suddenly, Naruto dropped his hand and stopped playing without pausing the game, looking at the woman who had just appeared in the room with a green bottle in her hand. Lady, you truly know how to capture this man's heart. You look absolutely gorgeous in that dress. He gave her a thumb up and a 1,000-watt grin, much to her amusement. I am flattered. Kazahana giggled and pushed her chest out to show off her impressive feminine charm, blushing slightly at his compliment. So I take that it's your shift, Kazahana. Giving a disappointing sigh and placing a hand on her hip, Takami asked, looking at the wind Sekirei and ignoring the way Naruto was checking her voluptuous body. You are correct. Kazahana nodded her head. I will be watching over him from now to 7 tonight. After that, Karasuba will take over and tomorrow will be Matsu. Naruto turned his thumb down and booed wholeheartedly. What about that girl with glasses, Matsu? Well, Mia decided to leave her out of this, since she's not a fighting type Sekirei, Kazahana answered with a smile. And here I am looking forward to spending my time with her. She's a computer geek, right? Naruto asked interestingly and Kazahana nodded her head in confirmation. Naruto then looked at the bottle Kazahana was holding and questioned curiously, is that a bottle of sake you are holding? And I am hoping to share it with you. The black-haired Sekirei nodded her head while running her hand through her hair. That is if you're man enough for it. Now that's a challenge I'll take on anytime. You're on. Naruto grinned, before looking at Takami. You want to join us? Leave me out of this. Takami shook her head and turned around to leave the room after she had put her gun back in her pocket. Because unlike you, I have works to do and being drunk is not going to help it. She then turned around to look at Kazahana. Make sure to keep your eye on him, Kazahana. I know you love your drink, but we need you to make sure he doesn't go anywhere outside of this room without no one noticing anything about it. I will, don't worry. Kazahana waved her hand with a smile. Man, and I thought Mia was the only one who had 20 of something something or something up her ass. Naruto teased, causing Takami to glare at him evilly before leaving the room with another sigh. Shaking his head, Naruto turned off the TV and took out 2 glasses, which he placed them on the table. Not exactly what I imagined for a drinking contest with a busty woman, but I guess this will do fine. Naruto said as he pulled a chair out, smiling gentlemanly. Please, have a seat. Mia's right, you're quite a gentleman. Naruto gave her a surprised look when he sat down next to her. She really said that? She did. Kazahana nodded as she removed the bottle's stopple, remembering Naruto's statement about Mia earlier. I hope you don't think too bad about her. She might be a little hard, sometimes, but it's only because she is worried for our safety, which is only natural because you are stronger than her and yet your motives are still unclear to us. She explained, choosing her words very carefully so she wouldn't accidentally reveal anything to him, like Mia and her adjuster had told her to. I thought I have already told her last night, Naruto asked as he accepted a full glass of wine from Kazahana. You're here looking for friends? Kazahana giggled. Well, I can probably work with that, but unfortunately, Mia doesn't. She thought you were still hiding something. And you trust her? Naruto asked as he lightly touched his glass against Kazahana's, for the wind. For the wind. The wind. Sekirei giggled before putting the glass to her lips and drinking it all in a single gulp, and yes, I trust her. She is the leader and the wisest among us, after all. She nodded her head, exhaling longingly. Fair enough. Chuckling, Naruto casually put his empty glass down, making Kazahana widen her eyes slightly in amazement. If I were her, I wouldn't trust someone that easily. Naruto leant back before turning his head to look at the third Sekirei. What about you? What do you think about me? He asked, smiling curiously. Well, I thought your personality was a little out of balance. Kazahana answered with a smile, but I guess that's part of your charms. So you think I am charming? Naruto asked, smirking slyly. You are. Kazahana giggled, blushing slightly. She then put her elbow on the table and leaned her cheek against the back of her hand. Well, let's hope that you are a good man with no evil intention, because I don't want to team up with the rest of the squad to take you down and kick you out of here in a body bag. You make things around here interesting. You are welcome. Naruto waved his hand, smirking slightly. Anyway, let me get this straight. You think you guys have a chance against me, a god, together? We could try. Kazahana shrugged. Ha, good luck about that. Naruto chuckled as he gulped down another cupful of sake. You seem like you are holding yourself pretty well. Kazahana commented as she looked at him. How long have you been drinking? For humans, the legal age for drinking is 18, right? Yes, but haven't I already told you? Naruto removed the glass from his face and said with a smirk, I am not human. I am a fucking god. Kazahana couldn't stop herself from giggling again before adding. Well, keep fighting, acting, behaving and smiling like that. I might actually believe that you are one. Believe it. Naruto's smirk widened even further as he suddenly stood up and spread his arms dramatically, before it's too late. The more you wait, the more you are going to get overwhelmed by my godliness. Naruto then looked down and smiled when he saw Kazahana trying to hold her laughter in. Enough about me. The self-proclaimed god sat down and smiled at the black hair woman. Why don't you tell me something about yourself? Well, of course, you can leave the Sekirei part out. He waved his hand with a wink. You don't have to talk about that if you don't want to. I respect people's privacy. Yet you assumed Mia had a thing for purple when she saw her panty? It was an accident. Naruto laughed awkwardly. For Kazahana at least, it hit me in the eyes, you know. Alright then. Kazahana nodded her head, sighing with a smile. So, where should I start? I don't know. Hobbies, likes, dislikes, dreams? Naruto suggested, smiling fondly at the memories that popped up in his mind. Why don't you start first? Kazahana wasted no time, and immediately used that as an opportunity to learn more about the mysterious blonde. Maybe with that I will know what I have to do. Alright then, my name is Naruto, but you have already known that. Naruto began. What I like is ramen. What I like even more is when someone pays for them. My hobby is eating ramen. What I dislike is waiting for the ramen to cook, and my dream is opening the biggest ramen restaurant in the world. Seriously, there is something not right about you and ramen, isn't there? Kazahana looked like she couldn't decide whether or not to laugh or something else. It's the food worthy to be eaten by a god. Naruto gave her a thumb up. Speaking of which, maybe I should invite the goddess for a ramen dinner the next time she takes charge. He stated thoughtfully. Don't do that. Takami told me ramen was unhealthy, and Mia really hates unhealthy foods. Not if you know how to make it right and healthy. Naruto grinned. Anyway, that's enough about me. Your turn. Well, my name is Kazahana, and I am a Sekirei, number 03. Kazahana started with a smile. What I like is love stories and anything that is romantic. She cooed excitedly, holding her cheeks with both hands while swaying her body side to side. My hobby is drinking, as you can see. I don't exactly dislike anything, but my dream is finding the destined love of my life, who I will love with all my heart and love me back just as much. Wow, and you said there was something not right about me and ramen. Aside from the drinking part, there's something definitely not okay with you and love, you know what? Naruto chuckled before gently patting Kazahana on the shoulder, causing the black-haired woman to look at him in curiosity. Well, I wish you the best of luck. You have a good dream, you've got to grab it and never let go. I have no intention of doing otherwise. Kazahana smiled fondly. To find their ashikabi, to find the true and destined love of their life, was the dream of every Sekirei, even Mia, who could not be winged because she wasn't a Sekirei. The queen of Sekirei might not show it, but Kazahana knew that she wished to be given wings and to feel the bond of love like those she had sworn her life to protect with her blade. Alright, let's give it a toast, shall we? Naruto asked as he grabbed the bottle and filled the glasses full. For your dream, and for the bastard who is lucky enough to catch your eyes. Don't forget that dream restaurant of yours. Kazahana smiled as she held up her glass. Cheer. Cheer. I suppose you had a wonderful drinking night, Kazahana. A rather annoyed queen of Sekirei spoke up sternly while looking at Kazahana, who had just recently woken up from her slumber and was having a horrible hangover for drinking too much sake the day before. Apparently, when a bottle wasn't enough to get Naruto drunk, Kazahana had returned to her room and grabbed everything she had in her cupboard before bringing them to his room, drinking to her heart contents and knocking herself out cold in the process. Mutsu, who had arrived for his shift and carried Kazahana back to her room, had told Mia earlier that Naruto did not look drunk in the slightest. When she reported this back to Takami and Takehito, her adjuster, they had come to a conclusion that Naruto could not get drunk, no matter how much alcohol he drank, which shouldn't be possible because no human, or even Sekirei, had a metabolism that could run that strong. Nevertheless, it was still a very valuable information about Naruto Kazahana had brought them. So sorry about that. Kazahana smiled sheepishly behind her hand as she pushed herself up and looked at the leader of the discipline squad. How could I know that he could drink that much? She asked, more to herself than to Mia. Actually, we believe that he cannot get drunk. Mia shook her head, causing Kazahana to widen her eyes in surprise. Takami and Takehito told me that. Takami said she would need a sample of his blood just to make sure, but that is still the only logical explanation we have at the moment. For real? The wind Sekirei asked before lying down, feeling her strength returning and the hangover disappearing. You know, I kind of feel bad for him. Why? 19 years of age and his days of getting drunk has already over. Should have seen that coming. Mia muttered, crossing her arms over her chest before glaring at Kazahana, causing her to pale significantly. Anyway, I hope that your plan didn't backfire, because... Don't worry about that. I didn't ask her anything about Sekirei or anything too important while she was drunk. Hearing that, Mia immediately snapped her head around, so fast that if she were human her neck would have been broken, and widened her eyes in surprise when she saw a brightly grinning, hands in pockets Naruto skidding away from the door of Kazahana's room using an orange skateboard with mini rocket launchers at great speed. A group of armed security guards, being led by Takami, appeared soon after, chasing after the self-proclaimed god, who was maniacally laughing so loud she could hear his voice even after he had passed through 3 corridors. Did Naruto just... It happened so fast she could only see a glimpse of the blonde and couldn't even hear what he had said, but she was sure that Mia could see and hear him clearly. Yes, he did. Where do you think he got that skate? Please don't ask. I don't want to know and don't want to find out. Mia turned around and gave the answers for Kazahana's uncompleted questions. Her hand went up and started massaging the bridge of her nose, doing her best to keep her composure, sighing longingly in defeat. Don't take it too hard. Kazahana giggled softly while saying, You have to admit that things around here have gotten very lively ever since he arrived. Shrugging her shoulders, Mia gave no comment about that. Anyway, were you able to learn anything new from him? Don't tell me that you two didn't do anything other than drinking. Well, he did tell me a lot about himself. Kazahana nodded her head as she recalled their conversation. Naruto told me his unhealthy obsession for ramen and wanted to open a ramen restaurant in the future. Mia gave another sigh. That was expectable, considering that unless they brought him something else to eat, Naruto had been eating nothing but instant ramen. Not to mention that his name was Naruto, which was a ramen topping. Did you know he regarded that thing the food worthy to be eaten by God, and want to invite you, who is considered a goddess, for a ramen dinner next time you are in charge? Tell him I am not interested. And I have already told him that, so you should go tell him yourself. Naruto seemed very determined. Kazahana giggled when Mia sighed for the third time of the day. Is there anything else I should worry about? Mia asked, changing the subject back to before. Well, nothing. I cannot remember much of what happened after that. Kazahana uncomfortably looked away when Mia glared at her. But he said he didn't ask me anything about his Sekirei while I was drunk, so he could be lying. I have a feeling that he did not, Kazahana stated, shrugging her shoulders. Mia didn't say anything in response. Sigh, let's just hope you really didn't spill anything. Mia sighed finally, get some rest, we will. Boom, line break. 5 minutes earlier. Stop him, get that bastard. For fuck's sake somebody do something. Muahahaha. Naruto laughed and brought a toy machine gun out from nowhere and started shooting the security guards who were chasing behind him. You bastards will never get me alive. He cried and shot down several guards with direct headshots. Takami gritted her teeth in frustration but wisely retreated to the back of the group and allowed the guards to become her shields from the incoming waves of plastic bullets. It wasn't even 8 in the morning and MBI headquarters had already been turned into a circus freak by that idiot, who had somehow managed to knock out Mutsu, broken out of his prison and stolen several pieces of equipment, including a skateboard, 2 rocket launchers, and a roll of tape, from the technical division of the company to create a rocket skateboard, which he then used to cause ruckus all over the building. It was quite fortunate for them that he hadn't, accidentally, found his way into Sekirei's laboratories. Though, she had to admit, what he was doing at the moment was very impressive. Naruto was standing on a skateboard moving at over 35 kilometers per hour inside a building, yet he seemed to have no problem turning and navigating it through every corridor, even when he was standing backwards and facing the opposite direction. Putting that aside, he still needed to be stopped before he could go anywhere that involved the Sekirei. Oi, what are you idiots waiting for? She screamed to the security guards, you guys have guns, right? Use it. She gave them a harsh and devilish glare, which made them question who was more dangerous, the guy who was shooting them down with a toy gun, or the woman who could show them the face of the devil. But ma'am, there are people, I don't care. Return fire, she cried, pointing her hand at Naruto. There is no need for that. Before any guard could pull out his gun, Karasuba appeared right next to Takami and told her with a sly smirk on her face before charging at Naruto with inhuman speed, becoming nothing but a dark blur. Removing her sword from its scabbard, Karasuba jumped to the side and ran horizontally on the wall before turning her body around when she passed over Naruto's head. Karasuba slashed her sword as hard and as fast as she could, aiming for his neck from behind him, only for the blonde to somehow faded from sight, causing her sword to rip through nothing but air. The rocket skateboard continued to travel forward, but it was soon stopped by none other than Naruto, who was standing at the other side of the corridor. He raised his right foot and flipped the skateboard up before catching it in his hand. What a killjoy, he said, deactivating the rocket launchers. And here I thought I could have some fun around here. It's getting pretty boring, you know. He then looked at Karasuba, who was still smiling with her eyes closed. What time is it? Is this your shift now? That's right. Karasuba nodded her head. Mutsu's shift has already ended 10 minutes ago. You are in my charge now. Why do I have a feeling that you are the only one who is going to enjoy this? Yes. Karasuba nodded before her smile turned bloodthirsty. Yes, I am. Before Takami or anyone could stop her, Karasuba rushed at Naruto. Her blade came screaming at him from the right direction. Naruto smirked and moved his head out of the way to dodge, before bringing his skateboard up to block another, only for Karasuba's sword to cut through it like butter. Before Karasuba could bring her sword back for another strike, Naruto tossed her the skateboard and jumped into the air to send a dropkick on the board when Karasuba tried to push it away, sending it crashing into the silver-haired woman's chest, knocking the wind out of her lungs. Then, before she could react, Naruto shot forward and activated the rocket launchers at full power, sending a shocked Karasuba away and across the corridor. Growling, Karasuba used her inhuman strength to throw the skateboard out of her chest, causing it to fly uncontrollably toward the people who were standing behind her. "Take cover!" Takami cried out and quickly dove to the side to dodge the flying skateboard, which then shot out of the nearest window, breaking through the glass and somehow exploded. The shockwave that came after shattered every window on that side of the building. "What the fuck, you two? At least take this outside," she shouted, but of course, she was ignored by Naruto and Sekirei. "You have been waiting for this, aren't you?" Naruto asked loudly and threw a finger at the silver-haired Sekirei, who looked at him like a predator looking at its prey, with a smirk that could take the definition of sadistic to a whole new level. "You want to fight me that much?" "That's right. I want to fight you, and I want you to fight me seriously," Karasuba said as her smile widened. Her entire body shook with newfound excitement. "I want you to use the power you used to defeat Mia." Before Naruto could answer that, Mia and the rest of the discipline squad, even Mutsu who he had knocked out earlier, appeared. "And as I have expected, the big boss is here," Naruto announced dramatically, but the Sekirei queen decided to ignore him. "And good morning to you too. How have you been?" he said mockingly, mimicking Mia's usual cold behavior, which caused Kazahana to giggle behind a hand. Mia ignored him, but anyone who knew her could tell that she was annoyed. "Karasuba, what do you think you are doing?" the queen of Sekirei asked with a stern glare. "Mia, aren't you the one who said we could do anything to stop him from leaving his prison?" she asked, pointing the tip of her sword at Naruto. "You know full well I didn't mean using lethal force, especially in here." Mia shook her head, pointing that out. "You know me, I am not going to sit down and have a drink with him like Kazahana," she said simply, before turning her head back to Naruto. "Now, where are we?" She raised her sword, but before she could do anything, Mia stepped in between them with a hard look on her face. "No, I am not going to let the two of you fight in here," she said sternly before pointing her hand at the broken window. "Take it outside, where you cannot hurt anyone but yourself." With that, Karasuba nodded her head and lowered her sword, but she didn't return it to its scabbard. "Man, that's cold, Mia-chan." Naruto whined childishly at the purple-haired woman before smiling at Karasuba. "Well, shall we?" He didn't wait for her to answer his question. With the speed only Mia could follow, Naruto shot forward and tackled Karasuba around her waist, launching both of them out of the broken window. Karasuba swung her sword around, hoping to behead him, but Naruto had already seen it coming, and moved his body around, holding the fourth Sekirei from behind. Then, he locked her arms with his arms wrapped under her armpits and hands behind her head, before flipping them around and starting to spin like a whirlwind. As the ground drew closer and closer, Karasuba struggled to break free but found herself unable to match Naruto's physical strength. Then, when her head was only an inch above the ground, Naruto released her and shot out of the way, dashing his feet on the ground to stop himself, before turning his head around to look at Karasuba as she slammed headfirst into the ground, blowing earth and dirt up in a massive cloud of smoke. The blonde then turned around, facing away from the cloud of smoke and raised 3 fingers. 3, 2, 1? He counted loudly, taking 1 finger back with each count, and as soon as he was done, Naruto moved his head out of the way, dodging the tip of Karasuba's sword at the last moment, causing the silver-haired Sekirei to widen her eyes slightly in amazement. He then lowered his body and thrust his elbow into her abdomen, with enough force to create a small shockwave, before flipping his body around and kicking the side of her head using his right foot, sending a stunned Karasuba several feet away. Grunting, Karasuba turned her body around and returned to the ground on her 2 feet, but immediately fell to one knee as soon as she managed to stop herself, holding her stomach. "Don't get so why," Karasuba growled as she slowly stood up, holding her sword tightly in her hand. "You caught me by surprise. There's no way I am going to let you have another chance like that next time." She pointed her sword at Naruto. "You looked like you couldn't wait, so I thought, why should I make you wait any longer?" Naruto pointed out while rubbing the back of his neck. Hearing hurried footsteps coming from behind, Naruto then turned his head around and looked at the other members of the discipline squad, Takami, and a good deal of her men, who were carrying many advanced types of equipment. Some of them weren't just cameras, appearing from the front gate of the building. "Oh, come on, seriously?" Naruto asked loudly as he threw his hands into the air in a dramatic manner. "What kind of cliché shit is this? Is it just my imagination, or every time I fight you people, and Sekirei will always stick around to react to it? What are you talking about?" Before anyone could say anything in response, Takami turned to him and asked in annoyance while she was commanded her scientist to set up the devices. "This is our opportunity to learn more about you, so of course we have to record and take note of everything. Every data we learn is useful and valuable. Have you forgotten that you destroyed everything during your fight with Mia?" She raised her voice at the end, sounding more like an angry woman than a professional researcher. "Oh yeah, about that? Now that you mention it, I forgot to send you the compensation for the damages, didn't I?" he asked, before making an awkward laughter while rubbing the palms of his hands together nervously. "Say, can we forget about that? I'm broke, and I knew it," Takami shouted as she pointed her finger at Naruto. "I knew you didn't have the money to pay for them, did you, brat?" She had seen this coming because there was no way someone who was literally no one like him could have enough money to pay for those devices. "I don't think I have ever seen Takami-tan so angry before," Matsu said as she exhaled through her mouth and readjusted her glasses, which had slipped down to the tip of her nose. "But seriously, I thought she knew better than trusting the words that came out of his mouth." Mia commented while shaking her head in disappointment. "Oi, enough fooling around," Karasuba shouted, drawing everyone's attention back to her. She did not show it, but she was extremely pissed because she had been ignored since the arrival of the scientists and her teammates. "We are in the middle of a battle here, Naruto." "Naruto is fine, but please my dear, call me Kami-sama." Naruto turned back to the woman and said with a genuine smile while showing the palm of his hand to her. Matsu, saying nothing to him in response, she turned her head to the scarf-wearing Sekirei. "Give him your weapon." Matsu looked like he didn't want to do that, but decided to do it anyway. "No thank you." Before Matsu could throw his sword, Naruto raised his hand and said to him, "There is no need for that." He finished, putting his hands into his pockets. "What?" Karasuba asked, raising an eyebrow. "Are you trying to imply that you are going to fight me unarmed? Are you looking down on me? Didn't I tell you to fight me?" With speed far greater than the human eye could follow, Naruto launched a pair of throwing weapons at Karasuba, who widened her eyes in surprise but wasted no time to raise her sword to deflect them, causing sparks to fly and generating clanging sounds of steel upon impacts. The weapon spun around rapidly in the air, before returning to the hands of Naruto, who moved forward and caught them like a baseball player. From her point of view, they looked like rhombus daggers made from black steel wrapped in bandages, with a small right attracted to the end of the handle. But Karasuba knew what they were, as she had seen them before. "Kunai?" the silver-haired Sekirei asked, feeling underwhelmed, "and here I was expecting you to show off something more impressive." Though, she couldn't help but wonder where he had taken them from. "Kunai?" Takami wondered in curiosity. Nowadays, some martial artists used various type of weapons in combat, and kunai was one of them. However, they were commonly known to associate with the ninja, something she doubted could be a coincidence since it was in the hand of a sneaky son of a bitch. "Oh ho ho," he laughed like Santa Claus. "You don't want to see the magic I can do with these babies." Saying that, he spun the kunai around before gripping them tightly in his hands, taking a simple stance. "So, shall we?" he asked, smirking. Unlike the last times, he was the one who made the first move. Rushing at Karasuba at beyond inhuman speed that could not be seen by the people around them, but far from his best, he attacked with a wide swing from the left, forcing Karasuba to raise her sword to that direction to dodge. While she was not as fast as Mia, the sword-wielding Sekirei didn't have much trouble countering his second attack with the other kunai, which came from the right. However, Naruto didn't give her time to counter and continued attacking her with a powerful combination of slash and thrust that became increasingly faster as time went on, becoming a constant whirlwind of movements as Naruto drove number 4 back. Karasuba, meanwhile, was doing her best to keep herself from falling back any further. His strikes weren't just fast, but they were also incredibly powerful. Every time she tried to counterattack, Karasuba took a violent strike that was strong enough to make her stumble backwards. His lightning-fast and extremely accurate strikes gave her no time to recover. While he wasn't fighting her like how he had fought Mia, the speed and strength of his movements and attacks were far greater than their first battle. Even so, Karasuba took each strike head-on, because this was what she had been waiting for. From the moment she realized he could defeat Mia, the strongest and most powerful Sekirei in combat, she had wanted to fight him, to experience the thrills of fighting a real battle, where even the smallest of mistake could be made. Mia was her partner during training, but even a blind child could tell that the pillar had never fought Karasuba seriously, as she would never lay her hand on her little birds with the intent to seriously hurt them. "That's it. This is exactly what I have been waiting for," Karasuba chanted as she started to block his attacks by striking back just as hard, ignoring the pain for doing so. More, show me more." For the first time, Karasuba successfully performing a parry, knocking Naruto right hand back. It must be the hardest strike she had ever done. Her hands went numb, but the silver-haired Sekirei managed to force her fingers to stay in a tight grip around the handle of her blade, before advancing forward with a sadistic smirk. "Man, and here I thought Madara was crazy," Naruto commented as he lowered his body down to dodge a horizontal slash, twisted his kunai around and thrust the palm of his hand into Karasuba's stomach, sending her stumbling back. However, it didn't take it long for her to rush at him again with a piercing attack, the tip of her sword screaming for his heart. And pierced through his heart it did. But before anyone could say anything, the Naruto who had Karasuba's sword impaled deeply into his chest suddenly turned blue, and started cracking like electricity. Much to Karasuba's shock, Naruto lost his form and became a mass of lightning, which then electrocuted her before exploding and sending her back with smoke coming from her clothes and body. "Oh my, now that's amazing," Kazahana admitted truthfully as a stunned Karasuba was suddenly knocked away by a pair of wind dragons, one of which had been cut down by her soon after Karasuba had regained her composure. It was still amazing to see him performing incredible feats that even Sekirei like her couldn't. "Another wheeled lightning technique," Mia muttered, but couldn't stop herself from feeling amazed by the way it had been used. Naruto managed to turn lightning into an exact copy of himself, which she thought must be similar to how he could create the lightning hounds he had used to attack her, and placed it in his position before disappearing from Karasuba's sight, moving so fast she almost missed him. But still, where did he disappear to, was also a question shared by her. "Where is he?" Finishing the second dragon in less than 5 seconds, Karasuba thought as she turned her head around, expecting Naruto to appear right in front of her to deliver a strike at any moment. However, neither Karasuba nor anyone could expect the self-proclaimed god to appear from her shadow and attack her from behind, kicking her in the back with his arms outstretched, sending her away. The kick was hard enough to break the spine of a normal human, but Naruto knew it would take a lot more than that to do the same to a Sekirei like Karasuba, who turned around and stopped herself by dashing her feet on the ground, with her eyes widening slightly in surprise. "Don't feel so surprised." Naruto pointed his finger at her. "I'm a god, so there's nothing that I cannot do. Keep doing that and I might actually believe you are one." Karasuba replied with a small smirk. "Funny, Kazahana said something similar yesterday, and you two are nothing alike." Naruto then paused for a second before asking, "Did Mia teach you how to fight?" His question left everyone, especially Mia and Karasuba, in surprise. "How did you? I can read your movements." Naruto interrupted, "You two might have the same teacher, but I doubt there is anyone crazy enough to train someone at your level of physical prowess, aside from me, of course." He chuckled before continuing, "Anyway, I can see the similarities between your techniques, but while Mia carries her blade with graces, you carries it with aggression, which isn't so bad when you think about it." Naruto charged at her and attacked Karasuba with a lightning-fast left hook. Seeing his fist coming, Karasuba decided to parry it with the sharp edge of her sword, only for him to disappear completely from sight and reappear behind her, where he sent her down to the ground with a strong punch. "You are a skilled swordswoman, but unlike her, you are not a warrior." "Not yet anyway. TCH. The Sekirei clicked her tongue in annoyance before turning her body around while bringing her sword with her, slashing Naruto from below. However, the blonde had already seen this coming. He moved his body to the side, grabbed Karasuba's wrist and pulled her up before sending his fist into his stomach, causing her to stumble back a bit while gasping for breath. With her full power, the Sekirei used her enhanced speed and strength to attack Naruto, only for the blonde to block his sword with his index and middle fingers, much to everyone's shock. Giving her no time to react, his other hand shot out, and flicked Karasuba in the forehead, hurtling the Sekirei across the field. Before Karasuba could come to a stop, Naruto crouched down and took a handful of earth into his hand, before throwing it at the silver-haired Sekirei in the form of a small bird. Karasuba moved her head to the side to dodge, but the moment the bird was 1 meter behind her, it exploded like an explosive charge of C4. The shockwave knocked her from her feet and hurtled her forward, where she met with a giant dragon made from the ground behind Naruto. The smirk had never left her face. Using the blunt side of her sword, Karasuba hit the top of the dragon's jaw and used it as a leverage to throw herself into the air, dodging the creature made from the ground at the last moment before turning her body around and slashing her sword in a circle, cutting the dragon's head off. Another earth dragon appeared and attacked Karasuba from below. Its mouth was wide open. With a series of lightning-fast strikes, she cut the head to pieces. However, the dragons themselves were nothing more than a feint. The moment Karasuba landed her feet on the ground and turned around to look at Naruto, he was right in front of her, with a glowing orb of rotating orange energy in the palm of his right hand. Karasuba moved her body out of the way, making Naruto pass her harmlessly. Karasuba brought her sword back to the right side of her head, before bringing it down in a powerful slash. Her blade passed through his body like butter. Actually, it didn't. It was just another lightning clone, another distraction that electrocuted her and gave her no time to react when Naruto came at her from behind and thrust the swirling orb toward her stomach. It easily tore away her clothes, which was made from a very strong material, before getting to her skin. Naruto let his attack explode before it could go any further than that, sending the Sekirei several feet away in a violent cyclone. Karasuba crashed into the ground, which then exploded in a giant cloud of earth, and rolled numerous times before coming to a stop. Karasuba gritted her teeth and shakily pushed herself up. Groaning, the silver-haired woman pushed herself up, supporting the weight of her upper body with her arms. The top of her uniform had pretty been torn to shreds, hanging loosely on her body, but enough to cover her chest. Her stomach was bleeding, badly, and there was a huge amount of cuts and bruises on her body, something that she had only recently noticed. Naruto had really done a number of her, especially that final attack. Despite that, Karasuba was grinning. "This is my lost," Number 4 admitted as she glanced up and saw Naruto standing right in front of her with a smug smile on his face. Naruto had one hand in his pocket, but the other was holding her weapon, pointing it at the spot between her eyes. As much as she wanted the battle to continue, she couldn't care less about her physical condition. "You are really strong," she said. Yes, he was strong, very strong. He was stronger than her, stronger than Mia, the Sekirei pillar. She would be a fool if she denied that. "Admit it," Naruto said smugly while shrugging his shoulders, "I am a god." "Are you really?" she asked before adding, "No, seriously, are you really a god?" "Depend on what perspective we are talking about." He gave her a small, quick wink and a grin, which for some reason, made her cheek to dust pink. "Here you go." He flipped her sword around and caught the blade before handing it back to her, hilt first. Karasuba took it slowly, before standing up while holding her stomach. "Anyway, you should get someone." "I have a request," she interrupted with a firm tone. "Huh? Can you train me to fight like you?" she asked with determination burning in her eyes. "Can you tell me one good reason why I should waste my precious time playing video games to train you?" Karasuba clicked her tongue in annoyance but kept her cool. "Because I want to defeat you," she said with a light scowl, pointing her bloody hand at him. "I want some serious payback. I want to wipe that smug grin off your face, and in order to do that, I need to become as strong as or stronger than you are." Naruto's cheeks puffed out, making a face like he was trying to hold his laughter in, but failed miserably. "You said it yourself. There is no one crazy enough to train us." "Ah yes, I did say that, didn't I?" Naruto said with an amused smile. "So, what is your answer? Or are you afraid that I will become strong enough to defeat you and you can no longer call yourself a god?" Karasuba asked challengingly. Naruto looked thoughtful for a moment before he finally said, "I don't see why not. Alright then, I will train you." Naruto nodded his head, and Karasuba couldn't stop herself from smiling. However, the smile on his face split into a sly smirk that gave the silver-haired Karasuba the feeling she wasn't going to like what was about to come, but on one condition. Line break. Master, your room is clean. With the prettiest smile she could force on her face, Karasuba, dressed in head to toe in a French maid outfit, turned around and informed Naruto, who was sitting on a chair in front of his TV playing Final Fantasy X with a gamepad. Of all the thing he could demand, she didn't expect him to ask her to dress up and serve him as a maid for a day. It was a ridiculous demand, but considering his annoying personalities, wasn't that much of a surprise. Karasuba had to swallow her pride and did what she was told. Ah, Naruto smiled without taking his eyes from the scene. Thank you. Is there anything else I can do for you, Master? With the same smile on her face, Karasuba asked. I am hungry, go make some ramen. TCH, spoiled brat. What was that? It's nothing, Master. Karasuba denied immediately. I will return in a moment, she said, lowering her head before turning around to leave his room. At least now she could throw her tantrum somewhere, or even better, she could put some poison in his ramen and give him a slow, painful death. And don't bother poisoning my food. As if he could read her mind, Naruto spoke up that instant. I'm immune to all poisons. Now that's interesting, Karasuba muttered before walking out of his room. And of course, to make matter worse, everyone was there to see her. My, I didn't think I could live to see this day. While Matsu and Mutsu gave no comment, Kazahana said with a teasing smile, the great, big bad Karasuba-sama is wearing something that isn't our uniform, and it's a maid outfit no less. Is the world going to end? Shut it, Kazahana. The silver-haired Sekirei growled before turning to Mia, expecting the Sekirei queen to speak out her opinion. Mia simply asked a question, going this far to get him to train you? You are really serious about this, aren't you? I am. Karasuba nodded her head. Still, are you sure about this? You do remember that no ordinary training would make you stronger, right? Mia reminded her in a very low tone after she had made sure that Naruto, who was enjoying Kazahana's massage with a blissful and satisfied smile on his face, wasn't eavesdropping on their conversation. Since the abilities of Sekirei were the magnifications of their soul, according to the state of their heart, ordinary training would never help them raise their abilities. As they were beings of love, love was the crucial element to gain strength for Sekirei. Anger, hatred, joy, sorrow, but most of all their feelings of love, the love they would have for the Ashikabi and would have from them, were what influenced them and allowed them to get stronger. With his abilities, I don't think it's not going to be anything but ordinary, Mia. This is a bad idea, was the only thing Karasuba could say. This is really a really bad idea. She continued, looking at the idiot standing in front of her. He was dressing from head to toe in the uniform of a soldier of the United Nations Army, with red-black war paint on his face, and an ACR machine gun loaded with paint bullets in his hands. And to make matter worse to Karasuba, he had somehow managed to make her wear the same thing. It was at that moment Karasuba had found out he could be quite convincing. Are you sure there isn't anything wrong with your head? She finished, and why do I have to wear this thing? Come on, it is going to be fun. Naruto said, turning his head around to grin at her. Plus, haven't I already told you? This is part of your training, Karasuba. Observation. He reminded her, I can't see anything useful in doing something like this. She told him, you will see, now watch me. With a devilish smile on his face, Naruto loaded his gun and kicked open the door in front of him before charging inside and declaring loudly, everyone freeze. I'm here to capture all Sekirei and open fire. What the fuck? And almost instantly, every single employees within the cafeteria of MBI stood up from their seats, pulled out their guns and fired everything they had at Naruto, who cried out in shock and started dodging every bullet that were shot at him at extreme speed, in an overly dramatic manner with a panic, hollow-like face. That went on for about 20 seconds or so. No bullet was able to come in contact with the blonde, but the wall behind him wasn't so lucky and got severely damaged, yet for some reason, it was still standing. Mia and the other Sekirei were the only one who was still remaining in their seats at their table, with the Sekirei queen being the only one who was still enjoying her breakfast, elegantly. See, what did I tell you? Karasuba poked her head in and questioned him with her usual smile. That's not how you're supposed to react, you damn motherfuckers. Naruto cursed as he pointed his hand at the walls. You could kill someone, he cried, pointing his hand at the wall behind him without looking at the employees, some of whom was giving him the middle fingers or throwing curses at him for disturbing their breakfast, yet again. But the rest had already returned to their seats to continue using their meals. Don't worry, lowering her arms. Takami stepped forward and said to him with a smirk on her face while she was reloading her handgun with another full magazine. The wall behind you have been greatly reinforced to withstand another bullet storm like that. We know you are up to no good when we found out you sneaked into the garbage room to steal one of those uniforms earlier this morning. Seriously? Naruto asked in a mocking surprise. I thought there was no camera surveillance around that are. There weren't, we put them there last night, after realizing that you can break out of your room, no matter how advanced and well guarded it is, anytime you want. Takami said. Her face then darkened as she pointed a finger at Naruto accusingly. And don't tell me you didn't know they were there. You drew a fucking smiley on every camera, didn't you? And he managed to avoid being caught by every single camera around the area while doing that too. Where's your proof? Naruto asked, acting innocent while cleaning his face with a wet towel he had received from one of the workers inside the cafeteria. You are the only one around here capable of doing something like that, brat. Takami pointed out, I don't know how, but you are probably the one who did that. It had to be you. Are we done here? Naruto opened his mouth and raised his hand, but before he could say anything, Karasuba interrupted by speaking up and walking into the place to stand next to him. If that's everything you want to show me, can I have breakfast now? She asked in annoyance. While dodging so many bullets like that was indeed an impressive feat, she shouldn't have agreed to follow him. Turn out it was a complete waste of time, so much for thinking that he would start training her seriously right off the bat. Ah yes, nearly forget about that. Naruto said and gestured his hand forward. Sure, go ahead. Nodding her head, Karasuba stepped forward and approached one of the cafeteria's workers. I will have the usual. She told him coldly. Human. She might not show it directly, but she disliked all of them. They were weak and were little more than fodders for her blade. Even MBI's employees were not an exception. The only reason she had agreed to work for them to protect the unborn Sekirei from the invaders was because Mia had told her to do so after she had proven her superiority as the Sekirei pillar by defeating her with a single hit. Crossing her arms over her chest, Karasuba impatiently waited for her breakfast to arrive until. Hot water please. Her head snapped to the side when she heard Naruto's voice. He was standing right next to her, with a cup of instant ramen in one hand and a pair of chopsticks in the other. What do you think you are doing? She asked, glaring at him. What do you think? I need some hot water to cook this ramen. Naruto pointed out sagely. Have you ever eaten ramen before? Instant ramen needs to be cooked in 3 minutes. Go back to your cell and eat there. She didn't let him finish his answer and grabbed her tray of foods when it arrived. Thank you. Can you bring me what she has later? Naruto told the chef who handed him a glass of boiling water before following Karasuba when she turned around and walked away toward the Sekirei table without bothering to say a word. Ah come on. Don't be so cold Karasuba-chan. She turned her head around and gave him a murderous glare, but it didn't seem to have any effect on him. I'm your teacher. It's wise for the two of us to have some bonding moments. You know, get to know each other. We can work better that way. The silver-haired Sekirei huffed, but she didn't say anything. Smiling, Naruto then turned to the other Sekirei when they arrived at their table. Everyone doesn't mind if I sit here? Go ahead, we don't mind. Smiling, Kazahana was the first one to speak up, with Matsu nodding her head in agreement. As long as you don't cause us any more problem, Naruto-san. I don't see no problem, Mia said, turning her eyes to look at him when he took a seat between Kazahana and Karasuba. The latter immediately moved her chair a little further away from him. Don't worry, I'm not someone who will cause a ruckus and ruin people's meals, especially in the morning when you need to eat the most. Naruto said as he tore open the cup and poured the hot water into it. He then continued when he noticed the way the Sekirei were looking at him, maybe a little, but you have to admit that this place is pretty dull. He shrugged and parted the chopsticks. Keep talking and no one will say you are not crazy. Karasuba rolled her eyes. What have I gotten myself into? Duly noted. Naruto grinned before clapping his hands together. Itadakimasu. With that, he dug in and started slurping down noodles with a happy smile on his face. You really like ramen, don't you, Naruto-tan? Matsu giggled as she looked at the cup in his hand. She had never had ramen before, but she knew what it was from one of her researches about human. It's the food of the gods, or at least, worthy enough to be eaten by one. Naruto gave a small chuckle before continuing, and yeah, I really like ramen. When he noticed they were giving a weird look again, he said, I have my reason. You see, I was kicked out of the orphanage when I was 2 years old. Hold on a second, did I hear that right? Kazahana interrupted. You was kicked out of the orphanage when you were just 2 years old? Why? Mia asked. What kind of people could do that to a child? Naruto might a troublemaker and the Sekirei queen could almost imagine him running around pulling pranks on everyone in his childhood, but that could not be the reason. She would never admit it in front of him, but while his pranks might be annoying to some, including her, they were harmless and also weirdly funny. Because of who I am, and what I can do, Naruto said without looking up from his meal. The Sekirei didn't say anything and continued to listen to his story in silence. Anyway, I was kicked out, and to make matter worse, I was hungry. The only man who cared for me wasn't around when that happened, so I couldn't turn to him for help. It was almost midnight, most of the stores had already closed, so I couldn't even beg for foods, not that I could, since the hatred for me was shared by almost everyone in my village. The Sekirei, even Karasuba, looked at him in shock, but Naruto simply gave a small shrug, as if it wasn't something important. Then, when all hopes seemed lost, it started raining and I decided to find something to eat in a waste bin. I found a small restaurant, which was run by a man named Tucci and his daughter, Ayame. He then asked, "Can you guess what kind of food they served?" Ramen. Surprisingly, it was Karasuba who said that. That's right, ramen, and they gave it to me with a huge discount, which I could pay them later. It was the most delicious thing I have ever had, given to me by two of the nicest people I had ever known in my life. Naruto nodded, smiling fondly at the memories. Well, that basically summarized the reason why I like ramen so much. I hope that you guys are smart enough to understand it. He finished, smirking idly. And you just couldn't stop himself from making fun of us, could you? Mutsu deadpanned, with a tick mark appeared on his forehead. Here he was, feeling sorry for the bastard. Just trying to lighten up the mood, buddy. He explained the smirk had never left his face. Don't want you five to wipe and cry over my ultra-sad story. It is indeed a sad story. Mia admitted truthfully, breaking the silence she had maintained since the beginning. So I guess you have started eating ramen every single day after that night? Not every day, Mia. Naruto shook his head. I wouldn't be this handsome if I only ate ramen. Have to admit that it's very unhealthy without some vegetable, and like any child, I used to hate vegetable. He then turned his head to the side when a waitress appeared with his order in her hands. Ah, speak of the devil, thank you very much. He gave the waitress a charming smile, which made her blush beet red before she left. Naruto then turned around and looked at Kazahana. Can I have some of that? He pointed the fork in his hand at the bottle of sauce in front of the wind Sekirei. Oh, sure. Kazahana smiled and handed him the bottle. Naruto reached out to it with his hand and took the bottle from the busty Sekirei, which simultaneously resulting in his fingers gracing with hers. All of a sudden, a bolt-like sensation swept across her whole body, making her heart skip a beat. Kazahana widened her eyes in surprise and immediately took her hand back, frowning to herself as she tried to comprehend the reason behind that sudden feeling. What just happened? She thought to herself in her confusion while looking at her hand. Could it be? Deciding to test her theory, Kazahana took her eyes away from her hand and turned to Naruto, who was pouring a massive amount of sauce into his dish. Instantly, her whole body was once again wrapped in that pleasant sensation, which she had never experienced before since the start of her life. As each second passed, it became more intense, to the point her face flushed in the warmness she could feel with her whole body. Kazahana, is everything alright? Mia's call snapped Kazahana out of her musings. It was at that moment she realized everyone was looking at her. However, before she could say it, the light within the cafeteria turned red, and the next second, the alarm began blaring, altering everyone within the building. Naruto yelled over the ear-splitting noise of the alarm while looking at the people around him. I suppose that's not a good thing, isn't it? That's the alarm for the second wave of invasion, Naruto-tan. Matsu informed him as she and the Sekirei stood up. They're coming. All Sekirei, please report back to the commanding center. There you go. Matsu finished with a small smile, and Naruto nodded his head in understanding. Following the Sekirei, he stood up and raised his fist with determination burning in his eyes. Then what are you waiting for? Let's suit up. All heads turned to him. Alright. Geez, can I at least say that? He pouted, crossing his arms on his chest. Mia and Karasuba then looked at each other, before nodding their heads in a silence agreement. They then approached Naruto, and before he could do or say anything, they grabbed his arms and started dragging him away with the other three following behind them. Kazahana had once again lost in her thoughts. Hey, what are you two doing? He asked in surprise. Dragging you back to your cell. Karasubo replied with a smile. This matter doesn't concern you, Naruto-san. Mia nodded her head in agreement. Hey, I haven't said anything about fighting with you guys, have I? It's because we don't want you to make contact with any of them, Naruto-san. Mia answered. Still think I am a spy? He questioned, grinning. Until the day you tell us your true motives, yes we do. The Sekirei queen nodded before pushing him into his room with Karasuba, who then slammed the door shut and locked it with her fingerprints. You guys know that I can burst out of here anytime I want, right? Naruto asked with a smirk, placing both hands on the see-through wall of his room. I know you can, Mia said, nodding her head. That's why I am asking you to stay here, Naruto-san. I want you to prove yourself to us, that you're not our enemy. Isn't it the reason you came to this island, Naruto-san? To seek friends who won't look at you in a different way? She asked, with a surprisingly soft tone. I think it's time for you to gain the trusts of those friends. For the first time ever, she didn't want to think Naruto is her enemy. Naruto looked at Mia and the Sekirei for a moment before nodding his head. Okay, I guess I can do that. He said finally, alright. I will prove to you guys that I am not your enemy. Thank you, Naruto-san. Mia lowered her head, then, we will take our leave. With that, she turned around and walked away. Kazahana was the only one who looked back, and saw Naruto waving his hand at her with his trademark grin. Blushing, the wind Sekirei quickly followed her teammates to the commanding center, unable to shrug the thought of him out of her head. Line break. The United Countries came to Kamakura with a larger army this time. Last time they had been here, the soldiers had no idea that they were about to be dealt with a group of 5 with superhuman abilities. They had thought they were going into a war with a company with advanced technology but no military force, not powered aliens with the powers to take on armies all by themselves. The Sekirei had left no survivors, and taken no prisoners, leaving the United Countries' army force greatly damaged. However, it did little to stop them from trying to invade Kamakura once again. Not that they had found out about the Sekirei, who they desperately wanted to capture to study, and the truth behind MBI's technology. Overall, like they brought the same types of forces, ground troops, helicopters, tanks, battleships, only with a greater number. However, even without Matsu's ability to telepathy connect with MBI's satellites to analyze the battlefield, Mia could see several aircraft carriers from afar, carrying over 200 of fighter jets. This battle is going to be a tough one. Dressed in the uniform of the discipline squad with the Tosuga no Suguri in her hand, Mia spoke up as she stood at the front of her team. However, we cannot back down from this either. They come here with the intention to invade this island, to capture our unborn siblings. We cannot allow a single enemy to get anywhere out of this beach. Her eyes hardened as she tightened her grip on her sword. Fight them with everything you have. Do not show them any mercy. Roger that, they said at the same time, no one louder than Naruto. Hold on a second, Naruto. They all cried out in shock and turned to the young man who was standing next to them with a portable speaker in his hand. What do you think you are doing here, Naruto-san? Mia asked as she furiously stomped her way toward him. She had placed so much trust in him, the first time she had ever placed her trust in someone other than her Sekirei, and yet, ignoring the angry woman who was glaring murderously at him, Naruto raised the speaker and spoke up with a volume so loud the Sekirei had to use their hands cover their ears. Listen here and try to make sure my words get into those thick skulls of yours. He shot his hand out and grabbed Mia by her forehead, keeping her from hitting him with her fists. This is the first and last warning. Unless you are all having a death wish, leave this island this instant and go back to your family. It's not worth it. You cannot win this battle. Fail to heed my warning, and I will personally make sure that none of you makes it out of this island alive. The moment Mia decided to use her sword, was the moment she lowered it. Like her, the other Sekirei could only look at him with wide eyes. And to answer Naruto's statement, one of the battleships closest to them fired a missile at him. Watch out! Kazahana immediately stepped in front of Naruto and used her wind power to alter the trajectory of the missile, causing it to fly off somewhere and exploded on the ground harmlessly. Not necessary, since I was expecting a Super Sentai-like explosion behind me, but nevertheless, thank you Kazahana. The blonde gave her a grin and a thumb up, which made Kazahana flush, but nonetheless smile and turn away with both hands on her cheeks. No one noticed that, fortunately. Now, where are? Before he could say anything again, Mia put her hand on the speaker and lowered it down. What are you doing, Naruto-san? Mia asked. Unlike before, her voice was surprisingly calm. What do you think? Naruto questioned innocently. I'm giving them a warning. I didn't mean that. Mia shook her head. What exactly are you doing here, Naruto-san? Didn't I ask you to stay in your room? But you also asked me to prove myself to you, didn't you? Naruto asked with a smile, and what could be better than helping you guys take on this army, and prove that I am not some spy sent by them? Wah, I think we have it covered, thank you very much. Karasuba said, her voice full of sarcasm. I know you are more than capable of. Naruto grinned. I'm simply here to give an extra hand in case you guys need it. Call me an insurance agent if that's what you want. He then raised the speaker as several jets took off and flew toward them. If this is your answer? He asked loudly. All right, have it your way then. With that, Naruto dropped the speaker onto the ground. I guess we will have to do it the hard way then. He told the Sekirei. It can't be helped. Number 3 nodded before saying, so, how are we going to do this? Want to bring those flyers down with me, Naruto-kun? Kazahana asked, winking at the blonde. Ah, how can I refuse an offer from such a beautiful lady? Naruto replied while wearing a sly smirk on his face. Can you two leave that for later? They are raining missiles down on us. Mutsu shouted before lowering his body down and tapping his hand on the ground, creating a giant wall of earth that shielded them away from the wave of missiles. Lower that down, Naruto shouted to Mutsu over the explosion. Excuse me? Doing his best to keep the wall from crumbling under the heavy attacks, Mutsu turned around and asked, raising an eyebrow in annoyance. Naruto-san, what do you mean by that? Mia questioned. His shield isn't going to hold on for much longer. Naruto shook his head. Lower it down, I will handle them. He added with a serious expression on his face when Mia looked at him doubtfully. Trust me, Mia. Giving the self-proclaimed god another look, Mia then turned to Mutsu and gave him a nod of her head. You heard him, Mutsu. TCH, do not say I didn't warn you. He said and dropped the shield down to the ground. Right at that instant, Naruto shot into the air, with so much speed and strength that he broke the sound barrier in an instant and made the spot where he had stood explode and crumble. However, what shocked them the most was the yellow energy-like trail that he left behind as he wiped across the island at godly speed and, somehow, turned the missiles around and led them fly back to each and every single jet on the sky, destroying quite a lot of them in the process. Naruto returned to the ground soon after that. Some parts of his body looked like it was being burned by a strange golden flame, but they didn't last long and disappeared a second later, leaving no trace of their presences. I said I would handle them, didn't I? Naruto asked with a wide grin before turning to number 3. Your turn, Kazahana. He told her, snapping Kazahana and her fellow Sekirei out of their thoughts. Leave them to me. The wind Sekirei nodded her head before raising her hands into the air. Kamikaze, flower beauty wind. She declared in a silky tone, and used her power over wind to compress and transform the wind around her into a powerful gale combined with countless flower petals, which Kazahana directed toward the remaining jets in the form of a massive burst of wind, dealing massive damages to every single one of them before knocking them off the sky or sending them crashing into each other. Yosh, that's what I am talking about. Naruto said as he pointed his hand forward. Mia, take care of those aircraft carriers. Excuse me for saying this, but, the Sekirei queen spoke up as she raised her sword, I'm the leader of this squad. With that ice-cold declaration, she slashed her sword, sending a powerful shockwave that traveled toward the fleet of aircraft carriers before cleanly slicing through 2 of them at the same time. The ship exploded immediately, causing the fighter jets and several soldiers and pilots on board to fall into the sea without knowing what had happened. She then did that again, 3 times over, bringing several carriers down before they could deploy a single jet. Damn, Naruto exclaimed, talk about being overpowered. That's not even her full power, Naruto-tan. Matsu pointed out, I can expect as much. The blonde chuckled before turning his eyes to the beach, where tanks and soldiers were making their ways toward them. Watch this. Grinning at the Sekirei, Naruto stepped forward and extended his arms. The soldiers aimed their gun and shot first. However, before any bullet could reach him, they were violently repelled by a tremendous force, hitting the soldiers on their ways back. The tanks turned their turrets at him, but before they could even load a single artillery shell into their cannon, Naruto unleashed another force like that, but with greater force, blowing the war vehicles and the soldiers into the air before falling down to the sea behind them. That's not wind, isn't it? Kazahana asked in amazement. Yep. Naruto grinned. You really make this battle looks easy. Karasuba commented with a nod of her head, very impressive. Just how many powers do you have anyway, Naruto-san? Mia couldn't help but ask. He was capable of manipulating natural elements and performing feats that not even a Sekirei could do at their best, and yet no matter how astonishing and how shocking and amazing they were to her, Mia couldn't help but think that she hadn't seen the end of it. Enough to make myself a god. Naruto declared with his hands in the air. Come on, admit it. Here we go again. The Sekirei groaned while shaking their heads. Sorry, but we are in the middle of a battle here. Mutsu reminded them. Ah yes, the enemies. Naruto grinned. Alright Sekirei, let's finish. He shouted, but immediately stopped when he saw the icy glare Mia was giving him. Ah yes, the blonde laughed awkwardly while retreating. You go ahead, ma'am. He threw his hands and lowered his head in a bowing manner. Sekirei, Mia turned around and slashed her sword toward the horizon, destroying the nearest battleship. You know what to do. Finally, Karasuba smirked and removed her sword from its scabbard before charging down to the battlefield below. She went for the nearest soldier and killed him with a quick stab through the heart. She then swiped her sword to the side, tearing the dead man apart, and used that move to finish the one who was standing next to him. Hearing gunshots coming from behind her, the silver-haired Sekirei immediately turned her body and started running in a zigzag pattern to dodge the bullets, approaching the ones who were shooting her before ending their lives with a series of lightning slashes, which were so fast they could not be seen by any of those men. What are you doing? A lieutenant cried. She's just a woman with a sword. Kill her. I think it's her. She's one of those Sekirei. Karasuba raised an eyebrow at that. They must have obtained this information from a source within the company. If one didn't know any better, they would think that Karasuba and her fellow Sekirei were super soldiers created by sciences. She heard a case like that had happened before in the past, so considering the company's advanced technologies, such idea wasn't impossible. The only one who could sneak information out was Naruto, but she doubted he would do something like that, since he were fighting with them and had already killed numerous soldiers of the United Countries, not to mention damaged several war vehicles. No one would sacrifice that much to obtain something they could hardly get their hands on. Karasuba was violent and she loved to fight, but she wasn't stupid. She might not be as smart as Matsu, but she knew how to analyze a situation, and no matter how many times she had thought about it, she couldn't imagine Naruto being someone who had been sent by the enemies to spy on them. Sure, she had to admit that Naruto had had some moments that had completely stunned her, but it still didn't change the fact that he was too stupid, and his ego, was too big to do something like that. Plus, no one in their right mind would waste someone like him, who was much stronger than any of them, to a pointless mission, where he had done nothing but messing and pranking everything and everyone, like this. If they wanted to capture the Sekirei, even the Sekirei pillar herself, Naruto could do that many times over, a fact that Karasuba didn't want to accept. Weak human. Clearing her mind of those unnecessary thoughts, Karasuba said as she grabbed a soldier by his neck, stabbed her sword through his chest and used his body as a meat shield to protect herself from the bullets, doing that just for the thrill of it, and I thought you would provide me with something more entertaining this time. Fuck you bitch, let's see how tough you are against these men, give it to her. With that exclamation, several rocket-propelled projectiles were fired at her. Smirking triumphantly, Karasuba pulled her sword back and tossed the lifeless body to the side before charging forward. Now, shooting missiles at her? Is that a proper way to treat a lady? However, before the Sekirei could make a single attempt to dodge the rapidly approaching missiles, Naruto appeared in her field of vision and appeared to be running straight at her from the side. He crossed her in a split second, but that was more than enough for him to turn all the missiles around and have them blow up every soldier that was standing in front of Karasuba, including the ones with the rocket launchers. You're very welcome, Naruto said as he stopped. I can handle it, Karasuba said. giving him a slight glare. Thank you, Naruto-sensei. How did you do that, Naruto-sensei? Can you teach me how to do that, sensei? Naruto started sarcastically, come on, you're my student. You're supposed to be impressed by my techniques. I found it unimpressed, actually. By the way, I will learn from you what I find useful. That, she stopped for a second to stab her sword down the injured soldier who was trying to crawl away, ending his life, was easy to do, as long as you're fast enough. Sure, as long as you are fast enough, Naruto replied her words while smirking slyly, and it took Karasuba a second to realize it. She immediately attacked him, but Naruto closest dived to the side to dodge before running away. See ya. He shouted while waving his hand at her. Tch, what a pain. Karasuba scowled in annoyance with a hand on her hip. Now, she turned around and looked at the soldiers who were carefully approaching her. Where are we? The bloodthirsty smirk didn't take that long after that to return to her face. In the end, it didn't take it long for the discipline squad and Naruto to finish their tasks, the latter being the one who had run around and provided supports to the three Sekirei battling on the field, giving them a much easier time to take down their respective opponents. Like the first time they were here, the army of invaders were completely wiped out. Those who had stepped foot onto Kamakura were shown no mercy by Karasuba, even after the battle had ended and most of the enemy forces had started retreating. I guess that's the end of it, Mia said as the others gathered around her. It's time to go back, she said and turned around to walk away. Phew, alright, who wants some ramen? Naruto asked loudly as they followed behind the Sekirei pillar. Karasuba, you want some ramen? Mia, can I talk to you for a second? While Naruto was trying to convince an annoyed number 4 to have some ramen with him, Kazahana stepped forward and tapped the Sekirei pillar on the shoulder, stopping her. Of course. Mia nodded her head as she let herself and number 3 fall behind the ground and stopped. Everyone goes ahead, she told the others when they turned around to look at them in curiosity before returning her attention to Kazahana. What's it, Kazahana? I think, after making sure that the others couldn't hear them, Kazahana began. She then paused for a second to take a deep breath before saying finally, I think I am reacting to Naruto. Sigh, alright, I know it's been a while but I will see what I can do. Sensing a presence entering the floor, Naruto turned his head around and saw the beautiful queen of Sekirei, Mia, making his way toward his room, carrying something that he could already tell was a bowl of ramen. One will call you later. I know this sounds harsh but I will not tolerate any hostile actions toward the Sekirei, Naruto said seriously into the mobile phone, but in a low tone so Mia could not hear a single word. They try to harm a single bird, and they will make an enemy out of me, and see if you can do something about those united countries. They are really getting on my nerve. And with that, he hung up and put the phone into his pocket. Mia, who stood outside of his room, looked at him weirdly for a second before opening the door and making her way into his room. Mia-chan, to what do I owe the pleasure? Spinning around to face the Sekirei pillar, he greeted her cheerfully, then glanced at the bowl of ramen on the tray in her hands. Is that ramen? He then pointed at himself, smiling. Is that for me? Naruto-san, where did you get that phone? The purple-haired woman asked, ignoring his questions. More importantly, who were you talking to? He wasn't allowed to make contact to anyone outside of Kamakura Island, but since Naruto had never shown sign of following orders, Mia was sure there was no point in reminding him about that. No one in particular, Naruto answered without pausing a second. His expression did not change a single bit. Also, I borrowed the phone from a female worker, but don't worry, I will make sure to return it to her later today. He winked. Mia looked at him doubtfully but soon realized Naruto was not going to tell her and there was nothing she could do to make him do it, so she decided to drop the matter for the time being, but made a mental note to ask Matsu to do some investigations about his call later on. Alright then, Mia nodded her head, making him grin. Yes, this is yours, the Sekirei said, glancing at the bowl of ramen before turning her eyes back to Naruto, continuing before he could open his mouth. I want to thank you for helping us out there. Don't mention it, Naruto smiled, waving his hand in front of his face. Plus, you guys did most of the works, I didn't do anything. Most of us don't believe so. Naruto raised an eyebrow, which didn't go unnoticed by Mia. Karasuba. Ah, go figure. The blonde chuckled humorously as Mira put the bowl down to the table in front of him and took her seat on an empty chair beside Naruto. I also want to apologize, Mira said, lowering her head a little, for the way I acted and for doubting your intentions. Well, about that, Naruto stated doubtfully while rubbing his chin, I don't think you need to apologize for anything. Sure, we had a rough start, but it was only because you were worried about the others. The young man turned to Mia, giving her a small smile as he picked up the chopsticks and was more than ready to dig in. If I were you, I would have done the same. Here I am, a complete stranger with unclear intentions that suddenly appear out of nowhere, wielding the powers that can be used to easily defeat every single one of you, thus endanger everybody here on this island. Even I would be very worried if I met someone like that, let me tell you. I see. Mia nodded her head. She remained silent for a few seconds, as if she was thinking hard about something, before finally breaking the silence with a question, Naruto-san. Do you know what Sekirei are? Sekirei are a genus of passerine bird, right? Naruto asked but added quickly when he saw the look Mia was giving him, relax, I was just kidding. Why don't you enlighten me? To put it simply, we are aliens, extraterrestrial superpowered humanoids with a genetic code similar to you humans. Naruto nodded, crossing his arms over his chest as he put the chopsticks away. A very long time ago, 8 Sekirei spaceships reached Earth. Ours contained 108 life forms, crashed in the sea near Japan. The rest landed in various locations worldwide, and the Sekirei aboard them gave rise to the myths and legends of gods and heroes that have passed down through histories of mankind. You are not surprised. It was not a question, and wasn't something Mia had not expected. You probably know that already, don't you? Before I answer that question, can I ask you something? Mia nodded her head in approval. Why tell me now? I take that you have come to trust me more than before, but I cannot see why you have to tell me everything so suddenly like this. Because Naruto-san, aside from the fact that sooner or later, one way or another, you will learn everything about us. Mia said slowly, even if I don't, Kazahana will. Once asked, she will answer everything you want to know. I did not expect that. Naruto made a sound of surprise. Can I ask why? You see, Naruto-san, you're her Ashikabi, her destined one. Naruto simply raised an eyebrow in response. Ashikabi are the individuals to whom Sekirei become attached to, in both a contractual and emotional sense. Well, she did behave strangely earlier today while I was talking to and standing near her. Naruto stated and leaned his chair back. His eyes did not leave Mia. So, you're telling me that Kazahana is in love with me, all of a sudden? She has become attracted to you, and in due time, which I can tell will happen very soon, she will fall in love with you. Mia answered. Naruto nodded his head and stayed quiet for a moment, but then a small, almost unnoticeable smile crossed his face in a millisecond before it disappeared like it was never there, so fast even someone like Mia almost missed it. Where is she now? She is currently doing some medical exams. This is the first time a Sekirei of this era react to her Ashikabi, so the scientists want to know exactly what is happening to her. Naruto rolled his eyes. It can't be helped. I think I get it. The blonde-haired man chuckled. So, the reason you are telling me all this is because... He stopped and gestured his hand for Mia to finish his sentence. It is because I want you to have the time to think about it, so you can make the right decision. Mia said with a serious tone. You see, for Sekirei, Ashikabi mean the whole world, while nothing else matters. A Sekirei can only have one Ashikabi, and the moment they are bonded to each other, said Sekirei will come to love their Ashikabi unconditionally, and willingly to do anything for them. The bond between a Sekirei and their Ashikabi is extremely sacred, something that they will treasure with all of their heart. She then paused a second before continuing distastefully. However, while an Ashikabi can choose to wing their Sekirei, they can also choose to reject them. Thus, whether you will accept Kazahana or not, it's your choice. Well, I take that it's a very bad thing. He didn't have to be a genius to know that, based on Mia's tone. The Sekirei queen then looked at Naruto in the eyes, staring deep into his cerulean blue eyes. Naruto-san. I have no right to tell you to do something you don't want to do, and I am clearly powerless to make you, but I wish you will think very carefully about it, and do the right thing when you see Kazahana. As the queen of Sekirei, I guarantee you that you won't regret it, the bond that is growing stronger between you and your Sekirei. Well, Naruto unfolded his arms and continued. You don't have to worry about that, Mia. I would be a fool if I chose to reject Kazahana. I mean, she's a smoking hot babe, No straight hot-blooded man would reject an opportunity to have someone as Y as she is to fall in love with them like this, especially not someone like me. He laughed, causing Mia to click her tongue in displeasure. Well, joking aside, I can't see any harm in bonding with Kazahana. Even if there is, I won't reject her, so you don't have to worry about that. Thank you, Naruto-san, Mia said and lowered her head gratefully. You are very welcome. Naruto grinned before turning back to his meal. Well, I should eat this before it gets cold. Did you ask the kitchen to make this for me? No, I didn't. Mia shook her head. I made it. For real? Naruto asked in disbelief. His eyes widened as wide as dinner plates. After what you did on the battlefield this morning, I thought I should do something for you in return. Mia shrugged her shoulders. Damn, you really don't have to do that, you know. Naruto said before clapping his hands together and starting to eat with a smile on his face. However, it dropped and the blonde stopped as soon as he swallowed the first mouthful of noodles. Mia, he looked at the Sekirei queen, is this instant ramen? Yes, it is. Mia nodded her head and answered right away. While her expression remained unchanged, Naruto could tell that she was somewhat nervous. I didn't know how to cook, so. She looked away, and Naruto could hear the disappointment in her tone. It didn't take him long to realize that Mia had tried cooking before, but it had ended horribly and become a disaster. But you said you made this. I didn't say I cooked it, did I? The purple-haired pillar retorted. Well, I guess you do have a point. Naruto then looked at Mia. Do you want to learn cooking? I can teach you. You know how to cook? Mia asked him in surprise since Naruto had never appeared to be someone who could cook a decent meal for her. Well, I may not look like it, but you won't find a better chef than me in this world, Naruto told her proudly, holding his chin high and hitting his chest thunderously, which caused him to cough in the result. Mia stared at him for a second, before breaking out in a fidia of giggle, hiding her lips behind the knuckle of her hand. Hey, I'm serious. The blonde defended but smirked as he looked at the rare, but beautiful smile on Mia's face. Sure you are, Mia said after she had stopped giggling, but the smile didn't leave her face. Of course, if you don't mind, I would love to. Naruto nodded and turned back to his meal, with Mia waiting patiently for him to finish. In a matter of seconds, the bowl was clean, leaving Mia speechless. Thanks for the meal, Naruto said and pushed the bowl away, sighing in satisfaction. Now that you have finished, Mia said slowly, turning Naruto's attention back to her, can you give me the answer to the question I asked you earlier, Naruto-san? Ah yes, hold on a second. Naruto nodded his head before leaning forward, reaching his hand under the table and took out a very small device, which he then crushed between his fingers. Matsu? Mia asked with half-lifted eyes, remembering number 2's unusual hobby. Nope, Manaka. Naruto shook his head before crushing another bugging device, which he found under his chair. I removed Matsu's cameras and most of Manaka's bugs before you arrived. It's harmless for them to hear my thoughts about the Sekirei's existence, but I don't want any of them to hear what I am about to tell you. I see, Mia said. It must be something really important, she thought. Listen, Mia, what I am about to tell you is a secret of mine that is only known by a selected few people. Naruto said seriously, fully turning his chair toward the Sekirei pillar. It cannot be known by anyone else, especially by a company led by a mindless idiot who thinks he is cool like MBI. Mia almost burst out laughing at that description. I will probably tell Kazahana later on because she is going to become my Sekirei and all. You, on the other hand, because I believe that you can keep this secret safe, that you won't tell anyone and it does involve you more than you think. Mia looked surprised, but she remained silent. Can you promise me that you won't tell anyone unless I allow it? I promise, Mia replied firmly. Alright Mia, the reason I was not surprised was because I had already known about the Sekirei long before Manaka Hiroto and Takami Sahashi arrived on this island and discovered your spaceships. Naruto began, I know this is hard to believe but you see. Kamakura, it did not suddenly appear out of nowhere. Naruto paused for a second before continuing. Much to Mia's shock, I used my powers to create this island and bring you birds back to this world. I'm here because of a promise. Line break. I believe that's everything, Takami said as she opened the capsule, allowing Kazahana to sit up and stretch her arms by pushing her hands above her head. You're free to go wherever you want, Kazahana. She told her, smiling knowingly. Finally, the wind Sekirei said and stood up before making her way out of the lab. ignoring most people who were standing in her way. Now, aren't you excited? Kazahana didn't need to look to know who it was, and because of the sarcasm in her tone, she decided not to look as well. What is it that you want, Karasuba? The number 3 Sekirei asked, continuing advancing forward. We simply want to congratulate you, Kase Tan. Hearing Matsu's voice, Kazahana finally turned around and saw the second Sekirei standing with the rest of the discipline squad, sans Mia, who she had seen leaving the laboratory earlier after discussing something with Matsu. Matsu, thank you. A smile appeared on her face as she looked at the genius Sekirei, before darting her eyes to the other two. You too, Matsu. But I suppose, we, doesn't mean every single one of you, does it? She said, looking at the silver-haired Sekirei. She and Karasuba were on good terms, but she had never liked number 4's attitudes about Ashikabi and the bonds Sekirei shared with them. Hey, at least your Ashikabi isn't a weak one. Karasuba said uncaringly, I must admit, to have someone like him as your Ashikabi, you're a very lucky Sekirei, Kazahana. Why thank you. The wind Sekirei replied sarcastically while running her hand through her hair. Do you need me to tell you that I don't need your opinion about my Ashikabi? She then looked around. Where's Mia? She is talking about Naruto right now, Matsu informed. What does she want? Kazahana asked in surprise. Mia-tan simply wants to talk to him about us, about you. Matsu quickly said before the wind Sekirei could get the wrong idea. We don't know how he is going to react when you tell him he is your Ashikabi, so Mia decided to tell him everything he would need to know to prepare for it. Kazahana nodded her head in understanding. As much as she wanted to be the one who told him that she was his Sekirei, Matsu was right. They didn't know how Naruto was going to react to the news. It would be better if they told him about them first, so he could have some time to prepare for it. Truly, there was no one who could do it better than the Sekirei pillar, as she was the wisest of them all and also knew about them more than anyone else. Though, she could not help but think that it was not going to be a problem, considering his personality and the fact that he might have already known almost everything about them. Alright then, Kazahana said finally, I think I should go. I will see you guys later. She smiled and turned around to continue heading to Naruto's room. It didn't take her long to get there, as his room was only 1 floor away. With each step the wind Sekirei took, the pleasant sensation within her chest grew stronger and became so intense, she could feel her entire body flushing with warmness. Her heart and her mind yearned for Naruto, and the wind Sekirei knew she was going to love. As the elevator doors opened with a ping, Kazahana found herself standing in front of Mia, but she could see there was something different about the Sekirei queen. Mia looked distraught, like she was being bothered by her own thoughts. The calm and collected queen of the Sekirei had completely disappeared, and to say Kazahana was surprised was an understatement. Mia, Kazahana, they greeted, almost at the same time. The alien expression on Mia's face quickly disappeared after that and was replaced by a small, yet very genuine smile appeared on her face. It was something that she didn't see very often. I have filled him in the details, don't worry, everything is going to be fine. Ah, thanks a lot, Mia. After saying with a smile, Kazahana looked over Mia's shoulder to see Naruto looking at them. Their eyes met, and Kazahana felt like the entire world had stopped moving and her entire heart and mind was focused on him, while everything else disappeared and was no longer something she wanted to care about. I'm happy for you, Kazahana. The wind Sekirei was broken out of her trance when Mia spoke up and placed a hand on her shoulder. Now, go to him. She said, stepping out of the way and opening a path for number 3, who then stepped out of the elevator, allowing the leader of the discipline squad to walk in. I will see you later. And with that, the doors closed. Taking a deep breath, Kazahana approached Naruto, as the young man stood up from his bed and came to open the door for her. Please come in and make yourselves at home. Oh wait, you have already done that the last time you were here. He said cheerily, causing Kazahana to giggle wholeheartedly at his words. Now that you mention it, I haven't thanked you for letting me rest here last time, Kazahana said, folding her arms under her s. Ah, don't mention it. Naruto grinned. Actually, I should be the one who says thank you. It's been a while since the last time I had a good drink and an even greater drinking partner. I know that I can't get drunk, but I can still feel the liquor just fine, you know. He said and gestured his hand toward his bed. Why don't you sit down? It's not very comfortable talking while standing like this. Alright then, Kazahana said and took her seat on his bed, while Naruto sat down on the chair that he put in front of her, So, how much did Mia tell you? Well, literally everything I need to know. Naruto answered, I know what a Sekirei is, and I know I am an Ashikabi, your Ashikabi to be specific. Kazahana nodded, smiling while blushing a little. I know this is a bit sudden for you, Naruto. You barely know me, and this kind of humans relationships doesn't really work this way. But I can wait some more time so you can have more time to get to know me better. If that's what you want, I don't mind. Kazahana suggested, as much as she wanted otherwise. You don't have to do that. It's not right to deny what you desire. I am not going anywhere, so we will have plenty of times together after this. He said, waving his hand in front of his face. Besides, this is something I want as well. I want to have someone who can stay with me for the rest of my life. Naruto smiled as he got onto the bed and sat down next to Kazahana, who couldn't help but feel another meaning behind his words. He then turned to her and grabbed her hands, holding it between them. You have no idea how much it means to me, Kazahana. Naruto-kun. Kazahana stared longingly at the young man in front of her. Her body felt hot, and her breathing was hard to control. From the second their hands touched, her mind was filled with so many kinds of positive emotions. The mere sight of the young man standing in front of her was more than enough to make her heart thump even stronger and threaten to burst out of her chest. I know my life is anything but perfect, but if you allow me to give you the wings that you rightfully deserve, I promise you that I will make the most out of it. I will care for you, love you, and make you the happiest Sekirei ever. Naruto said, squeezing the wind Sekirei's hands. Kazahana was completely amazed by his speech, and the feelings that she could feel him put behind it. So will you, Sekirei number 3, Kazahana, allow me to wing you? From this point of view, those words sounded like a marriage proposal, but he had learned a very long time ago that the bond between an Ashikabi and their Sekirei was nothing but a marriage that would last forever. You truly blow me away with your manliness, Naruto-kun. You're very special, and I don't know where this is going to take me. But all that mattered to me right now is that you are my Ashikabi, and I am your Sekirei. Kazahana smiled a beautiful smile, before slowly nodding her head. My answer is yes, Ashikabi-sama. With that, Naruto leaned forward and kissed her. Instantly, bright wings of brilliant purple light flared into existence from the shining Sekirei crest that appeared at the base of Kazahana's neck, spreading across Naruto's room. It lasted for a few seconds before the light eventually faded away and the wings disappeared, leaving only Naruto and Kazahana lovingly kissing each other. Slowly but reluctantly, Kazahana pulled back and fluttered her eyes open, looking at her Ashikabi in an expression that radiated immense joy. Sekirei number 3, Kazahana. She said, caressing his cheeks. I am yours and yours forever, Ashikabi-sama.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.